This is third one now, man.
Yeah, so it's
right, yeah.
this is always a nice,
Okay.
all-star break and draft and everything. It's a nice change of pace from,
right.
constant.
And
Yeah. And Brandon, what about you? This is this becoming your favorite time of year now, man in the booth? Third one now, man. Yeah, the fans do not want a pitcher being picked at number 12. It is an understatement. It's been torn apart. But Trevor Hooth, the man of logic, man of reason here, you want the best player available, regardless of what position.
Yeah, of course. That's kind of the way to go in drafts. I mean, if you think about it, let's take Riley Green, for example. I know that's a high school hitter, so that's a little different, but you draft Riley Green, and 4 or 5 years later, we finally see Riley Green in a Tigers uniform. And you draft Spencer Torkelson. He took a couple of years, right? So there's elapsed time between when you select a guy and when he starts to help out your major league team or provide value to that major league team. So it makes sense to take whichever guy you think is going to provide the most value at that time. And to me, there's two different times you can evaluate a draft, and the first is when it happens. I think that we agree. We've talked about this the last 2 years. The Tigers have done a pretty good job drafting, I think, and that's right at face value. Now, hindsight's 20/20, so you get 10 years down the road, you could look back. Those could be terrible drafts. It's impossible to know. But there's separate times to evaluate drafts, and I think that to win the first evaluation, you need the best player available. It could be a pitcher. I mean, the logic behind don't take a pitcher because they need hitters, well, they've been developing pitchers. Look at who's stepped up this year in terms of Brisky, Faedo. So why would it be bad to take a high-quality pitcher in the first round with the sustained success of being able to develop that? That adds value to that major league squad. And of course, I know the argument, you get a hitter, you get a good hitter, which is something that the farm system does need. It makes sense too. So I think you just take the best player available, and especially picking at 12, somebody's going to drop out of the top 10. Every indication says chaos is about to ensue once the draft starts. So I think that it's just going to be a matter of figuring out who's there and taking the top guy on the board, which they've done a good job of the last few years.
Yeah, considering that this could potentially be the first draft ever where the first 10 selections were all position players. And the last time that no 4-year college player won their first 10 selections was 1990, when Alex Fernandez, who got drafted by the White Sox, drafted 4th overall, was the only college pitcher in the top 10, but he was out of Miami-Dade Community College. But he transferred there, as a sophomore. But another stat that I interestingly found, too, the latest first pitcher that was selected actually just a few years ago was 2019 when the Reds took Nicololo with the 7th pick. So the reason why, this is where I'm playing devil's advocate with you, Trevor, the positional talent on this squad this year in terms of the first 15, 20 picks, well, between you two, sorry, it's just between you guys, you have Elijah Green, you have Tamar Johnson, you have who the Tigers are thinking about chasing in Jace Young, Gavin Cross, there's Daniel Susek, the catcher, there's Justin Crawford, there's a bunch of bats, and it looks like Rob Manfred's just being Rob Manfred for a moment, so he's not ready yet, but Yeah, so there's a lot of positional talent, more so than we've seen. The college the college pitching has taken a lot of injuries.
Yeah, and that's I want Jace Young. That's my. I mean, I don't know if you were going to ask that later, but I'm going to throw it out there right now. I want Jace Young to be selected by the Tigers. I think he fits what they want really well, and I would love that. But my whole thing is that if Brock Porter or Dylan Lesko or Holton out of Oklahoma, if that's the top of their board because they think that they can develop them into an impact arm, then you got to go with the top of your board. It's just a matter of taking the guy that you think is going to be most successful within your organization, because that's eventually how you win. And the bats are fantastic. I think that it should be a bat this year, but if it's not the end of the world.
Baltimore's now on the clock, so this will determine the rest of the order. And we're going to be on probably till a little bit after, I think probably the end of the first round. It depends on how everybody wants to stay around for a little bit. But, Chris, I wanted you to go ahead and explain to the fans out there how the bonus pool works.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah, this will be fun.
Tigers.
I meant to get some visual aids for this because it could be a little hairy with all the numbers. But basically, what sets the baseball draft aside makes it different than like NBA or NFL draft, and I assume most people watching a draft show know this, but maybe not, is that every pick in the top 10 rounds is assigned a specific dollar value. So from the first overall pick, which the Orioles are about to make here, is I think $8.8 million this year, down to the final pick of the 10th round is about $150,000. And so every team gets the cumulative value of all of their picks in the first 10 rounds. That becomes their bonus pool. And then they can spend that in any way they want. So what you'll see in teams like the Orioles are Mike Elias, the GM of the Orioles, he used to work with the Astros. They did this many times where rather than take the consensus best player in the draft, they might take a guy who they think is top 5, and they could save $2.5 million on that pick and use that later to get more talented players in the second round or in the competitive balance rounds and things like that. So that's the main difference between the Major League Baseball draft and other sports is there's a kind of a money strategy element that comes into play. We saw the Tigers do it last year a little bit with Jackson Jobe. They saved about $300,000 under slot, I believe, and applied that to Ty Madden, who they got at 32, and Isaac Pacheco, who they got 39, and Dylan Smith, who they got in the third round. So I don't expect the Tigers to do that this year. I think, as Brandon mentioned, they've lost a couple of draft picks. They traded away their competitive balance pick, and they lost a pick for signing Eduardo Rodriguez. And maybe that pick is with him somewhere. Yeah. I don't know.
Scott, you were witnessing the NHL draft just recently with the Red Wings. In terms of how Steve Yzerman, and even when you draft a player in the NHL, what's the big difference in development versus baseball?
Well, to be honest with you, there's quite a lot of similarities in the sense that the NHL has you're going to hop around and play for a lot of different leagues before you make the NHL, and so there's a lot of differences in there. The slot is obviously a huge one, right? Like that's one of the most fascinating parts of the MLB draft is not international, sorry, but just like slot money and slot value and everything. I guess the biggest difference I would say, I mean, like I said, there is a lot of similarities. I think if you're looking at development in the path to the NHL versus the path to the MLB, there's a difference in the sense that usually the top 3-ish picks can kind of short track their way, and even like we see a lot of number 1 overall picks in the NHL draft go straight to the NHL, and baseball that's pretty much frowned upon and not even close to reality. So I guess that's the biggest one, is it might be a little bit of a fast track, but there are quite a few similarities between those two.
That makes a lot. I mean, because I know with the NHL, they started off in either, sometimes in certain cases, they're finishing up college or juniors, correct?
Yeah, and that's the other thing is you can, in the NHL, you can get drafted and then go play for your college hockey team. Like you can have the rights to someone for your last year in college hockey. You can be drafted. You can, an NHL team can own your rights. So that's definitely a big difference of it too. And the NHL doesn't have the baseball is that you have to stay in college for 3 years, 2 years, whatever, if you're a redshirt. So there are some differences as far as evaluating prospects, but the NHL and the MLB are definitely the two sports where you're not just immediately, for the most part, plopped onto at the highest level.
Scott, I meant to mention the button. Is the mic on? I think.
It says so.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So, all right, we had somebody in the chat said they had to turn the mic on there, but no, it's. Yeah, no, I believe you. I wasn't sure. Well, yeah, right now we're just getting everything technically sound. So, we're definitely
got an extra microphone now.
Oh, sweet. So, all right, so
Fancy.
All right, so now all of us are now. This is a work in progress, but nevertheless, yeah. Right now, the pick is in for Baltimore, as we'll announce that shortly what's going to happen. But when I look at some of the processes with the NHL and getting these players ready, it is, I don't know, like it. I look at it as when you hear like a name like the goalie from the Wheat Kings.
Sebastian Cousins.
Yeah, some of the same patience they have to show with baseball and NHL. That's where I think the similarities are. And here's the Orioles selection, and Baltimore will select.
It's very interesting to see who they pick.
Yeah, let's see here.
Jackson
Holiday. Wow. He
Yep.
was not.
So that's not very chaotic.
Yeah.
He was one of the top three.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
exceedingly chaotic, but one of the things about this draft is there's a lot of bloodlines in this draft. Jackson Holiday is one of them. He's the son of Matt Holiday, a former Rocky, Cardinal, and probably someone else. And there's also, Carl Crawford's son is expected to be a first rounder. Of course, Drew Jones is the son of Andrew Jones, and we'll see where he goes. He was really thought to be the top pick. I don't know that anybody necessarily had Holiday at 1-1, but he was certainly a top 3 pick. So not extremely chaotic, but not expected.
And Baltimore has a lot of bonus money to play with too, correct?
Yeah. So this, just to bring the Tigers back into this for a second, the slot value on this first overall pick and the second overall pick is more than the Tigers have total for the whole draft.
Wow.
Hello.
So that's one of the things is when you talk about somebody falling, it just isn't. You have to think about, can the Tigers even afford it? So the Tigers' total bonus pool money, they have $8,024,900. This pick right here, the slot value is $8,842,200. So it's an expensive pick.
Yeah, but I'm guessing that they're going to get him for 7, maybe 7.5, and save about $1.3 million on that pick. What's kind of funny is his younger brother is a 2025 kid. They think he's better. So I don't know how you top going first overall, but that's what his brother has to live up to.
Baltimore's gone under slot a lot historically too, so them at number 1 overall is kind of fascinating in its own right, just because of their long history of well, maybe long isn't the right word, but in the last decade at least, they've gone under slot quite a bit.
Yeah, the Heston Kjerstad pick famously led Rogelio to jumping in the pool.
Yes.
Colton Cowser was the same
last
thing.
year, yep.
They went full in with Adley Rutschman because he was the clear-cut number
Correct,
1,
yep.
and he's a college player, so you like that there. But
Turning out okay for them too.
yeah, now this is where it gets interesting, right? Because I think we had Joe Doyle on the show from Prospects Live the other day, and he said if Drew Jones, who's kind of the consensus top player in this draft, if Drew Jones doesn't go here to Arizona, he has no idea where he's going. And that could cause the chaos that Trevor has been hinting at.
Well,
Chaos.
it's you can go into free fall very quickly, and it seemed like one of these top prep bats is going to go into some form of free fall, and it's not the end of the world for them, especially now that there's the money in college that they can get, but we'll see which one it is. So. There's so many good prep bats right at the top. Of course, Jackson Holiday just went. There's Drew Jones, and then Termarr Johnson's in that conversation, and we'll see.
And Baltimore's a team this is a team that lost 120 games last year, and they just pulled off a winning streak of 10 games, which was the first time a team that lost 120 games before ended up winning 10 in a row since the 1800s. That's how rare it is. Mm-hmm. And Baltimore, I think, is getting ahead of the curve. Everybody kind of ragged on Baltimore. Well, they're the left field fence, and in how ugly that looked. But now it looks like a stroke of genius. And they are right now a game just over 500 right now in a very competitive division. And they have the number 1 pick, and they've been able to develop pretty regularly here in the last 3 seasons quickly.
Gunnar Henderson has turned into a great prospect in pretty short time frame. And Jackson Holliday, I mean, he's kind of got an interesting story because he was a guy who fell a little bit over the summer showcase circuit, which is traditionally when high school players make the name for themselves. You know, they're competing against the best of the best, and they perform there, and they climb up draft boards. And he actually fell a little bit, but according to all the scouting reports this spring, he got bigger, stronger, faster, and better across the board. And it was like, that's just really unusual. So, yeah, I mean, they're getting probably a small discount, but this is one of, he was going to go in the top 5 no matter what, I think. So it's not going to be a huge discount here.
And in terms of, Scott, in terms of where you saw Baltimore this season, did you expect this at all?
No, I mean, I think I can speak for all of us and say no. I mean, no, it's been a great story, and obviously the win streak and everything. Adley Rutschman is unbelievable, and that's a guy like I caught my entire life growing up, and that I just have I love catchers. I love catchers, and so seeing the #1 prospect in baseball be a catcher and watching him play this year has been nothing short of a treat, even though it's not for even close to my baseball team. It's just fun to watch good, talented catchers like that. So that's certainly been a big part of it. But I think another thing is they've gotten some decent pitching performances from a lot of people that were, I don't know, maybe wrote off as too dramatic, but I think a lot of people circled, everything but their pitching as maybe a weakness, and that's been certainly since they started, the win streak and everything has turned that around.
They've been getting some great performances from old friend Spencer Watkins.
Yeah.
Who, by the way,
Raj mentioned on the show the other day,
absolutely.
Yeah, we mentioned him. He was mentioned on our segment we do every Thursday, which is our Inside Numbers and the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And he has right now almost a 2 WAR in the month of July. A 2 WAR for a guy who almost retired to be a teacher last season, and Baltimore's able to get him off the scrap heap. And that's a more remarkable story than this entire John Schreiber thing, which is, it cracks me up because there's certain stations in town, I'm not going to say who, are just saying, well, the Tigers let him go too easily. It's like, no, there's a story in Fangraphs that said that they worked on his game in Boston and made him better.
He throws almost 10 miles an hour faster, man.
How is that the Tigers' fault?
What are we talking about?
Idiocracy. Brandon, sorry, we're trying to work on the studio stuff in here. As far as, what did you think of Baltimore's pick of Holiday, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense for them. They definitely are a team that's trying to save money. Obviously Elias has the famous background with the Correa and McCullers situation back in, 2012 or something. So, it's not terribly unsurprising. I still kind of thought they might just take Jones and just go for it. But, they know what they're doing. I would trust Mike Elias with the draft any day of the week. It's interesting you bring up, Spencer Watkins, too, because we've also got, Joe Mantiply out there. Nomar Mazara is actually, been hitting this year. It's been kind of odd. We've talked a lot about the Tigers' improved development of pitching over the past couple years. And I don't think we're wrong about that, but some of those guys just didn't get a chance with the Tigers when they really had it together, and it took them a while to get it together. So, maybe if they had been in the same system that is producing Wilmer Flores and some of these other young guys, things would have turned out different here. But you can't lament John Schreiber too much. You can't be worried about Joe Mantiply and stuff.
Yeah. I just feel like that's just silly. Like, no one expected that to happen, so knock it off.
Well, and there's an odd thing that happens. It's kind of like the prospect fatigue. It's minor leaguer fatigue for teams where you've got a guy, you've had him there for 4, 5, 6 years. Jose Azocar, as an example. Yeah. Tigers had him forever, liked his tools or whatever, but never really promoted him above Double-A because they're just like, it's not going to work. Then another team picks him up, and suddenly he's like an interesting new thing. Like with the Tigers, it was Nico Goodrum. Remember him? Hey, this guy can play a little bit. And he didn't get much of a chance at the Twins, and it just happens. It's one of the things. It's a classic change of scenery.
Sometimes a guy needs that to be kind of shaken out of complacency too. If you have a guy that's hard to get through to, I don't know. Maybe that's what's going on with Itzhak Paredes. They've been telling him to pull the ball in the air, couldn't get him to do it. Maybe it kind of shook him out of it to I've been dealt away. I'm in a new place. I need to establish myself. I've got new coaches. Maybe you're more, apt to listen in those circumstances.
The Rays being what the Rays are. I'm not taking anything away from them because they're a fantastic organization for this kind of stuff. But you can look at you can stat line scout Paredes from last year and tell that there was more power. That's something that he was working on in Toledo last year. So I'm very happy that he's succeeding and he's found all this success. Like, I never wish bad upon anybody who gets traded away just because they're no longer a Detroit system. But I mean, the power was coming, and now we're seeing it play out. So I'm glad he's getting the opportunity and showing what he can do. But I don't know how much you can credit Tampa for that. I'm sure they did something because they're Tampa.
Yeah.
But the power was on its way anyway.
By the way,
I
since
think
July,
maybe just maybe helping him, look for better pitches that he can drive to the pull field. I mean, that might have been all it was. No swing change or anything like that.
by the way, since July 1st, he's batting 208, 300, 358, and with a WRC plus of 96. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
Thank
we're
you.
not going to terribly.
Are you
regret
saying
that.
the Tigers won the trade?
Everything before the home run streak and after has been far below average.
I think maybe
to
he
say
just
the least.
he might just like Tampa because it's the world capital of strip clubs.
I thought Atlanta was.
Maybe it is. He likes being in
Here's
the South.
Arizona's pick. They
And
went
Drew
Drew Jones, by the way.
So
Breaking news. Drew Jones said the Diamondbacks.
So
I
that's-
called it in the chat. Nice.
that's 2 years in a row. I think that the Diamondbacks will have gotten the #1 player on the board, at least through Baseball America, through just being not the first pick and letting him come to them. And yeah, Drew Jones is a player that is really hard to find a comp for. The best I could come up with was like young B.J. Upton. If you remember, before he was Melvin and went back to being B.J., but he's 6'3" and can hit, and he's got power potential, and he's a 70 runner with a potential 70 glove. He's a 5-tool player. There are some concerns about him though with his hitting profile. Apparently, he does not ever pull the ball, like ever. But you could teach a guy to do that, I think, theoretically.
This system now is getting really fun. You're seeing Alec Thomas in the majors right now. Corbin Carroll is getting ready to take the throne as the #1 prospect in baseball. They picked up Jordan Lawler last year. You're adding Drew Jones to this mix. Oh, this is, and of course they have my guy Davison De Los Santos, who's not even close to the top. But you got to mention your guys, right? So, but they're a ton of fun right now, and adding Drew Jones to that is good. I mean, he's everything I think you could want in a guy in a prep bat that you're drafting. Because one of the things that I don't think has been brought up today is that high school players, whether it be arms or bats, are much more risky than college players, and that's because of polish and time it takes and all that's a litany of other reasons. So it's nice to see 2 prep bats coming off, and he's everything you could ask for in that kind of upside.
And not to mention, too, the Diamondbacks have done a really good job of taking advantage of the comp picks for pitching purposes. And this is a team, again, was in a rebuild not too long ago, and now we see them actually being competitive. I mean, they're 39-52, granted, but still, they're a team that you can watch and not go, damn it.
Yeah, it's one of the toughest divisions in baseball, and they're looking more and more like they might hold their own fairly soon.
They got off to a nice start this year. I mean, there was a time when in May, like every team in that division was 500 or better or something like that. Yeah, they got off to a pretty nice start.
Yeah, and
there's plenty of arms down there. Later on in the rounds, as we saw with the Tigers last year, pulled a ton of good arms after the first round. Should be the same this year. Arizona should do just fine.
So Texas, by the way, is up next, and their pick is in. So we'll break in here in a second.
Well, just to build off Brandon, that's the trend that you get, right? You want to spend your money on the top guys early, and then you can save money on college arms once you get into rounds 8 to 10. That's when a lot of those college pitchers come off the board because they're not going to cost as much. You can sign them under slot, and you save the money so you can go a little bit over slot on your first few round picks.
So a lot of times, there's 10 or 15 guys who you could all kind of put in the same bin, and it's just which one stuff do you like the best? Who do you think you can develop the most? The college arm thing, you can kind of put those couple tiers of guys together, and as long as you're pulling guys out of one of the second or third tiers, you're probably still going to do really well. And that leaves you free, to take that big swing at a prep bat, prep pitcher, whichever you like.
I'm gonna call my shot here, and I think Tamar Johnson's going to Texas.
Brooks Lee. Gotta be Brooks Lee.
Gotta be Brooks Lee.
Because think about this, Texas just spent a ton of money in the offseason to sign Seager, to sign the other big players whose names are escaping me. Simeon, thank you. Yeah. They're throwing all this money at the wall. I think you take Lee because Lee's one of the closer guys you're going to get with a high upside because he's from Cal Poly, he's a college guy. So I think that if you're looking at window specifically, Brooks Lee makes the most sense for Texas.
Well, wait a minute.
I think they might go Parada.
Jeff Passan just tweeted out.
I was. Go
ahead, Scott.
No,
go ahead,
he just tweeted. Jeff Passan, ESPN, obviously. There is significant buzz that Kumar Rocker will be going a lot higher than teams believed he would coming into tonight.
And Passan said Texas is the projected pick.
They did it.
Holy cow.
They did it.
Wow. That is the shocker of the night. That's the first one.
Well,
that's unreal.
That's good news for the Tigers, right?
Yeah.
One less decision to make.
Yeah. Let's get weird, as Cody Saberhagen said on Twitter. I completely agree with him.
So we're up to pick 3, and here's the chaos.
Chaos.
There's the chaos.
So this will be very interesting because everybody thinks the Pirates are gonna cut a deal with somebody for below slot money.
Right.
So who is it at this point? Is it Termar? Is it Neto? Is it? I don't think it'll be Green. Parada. They wouldn't take Parada. They took Henry Davis last year.
I think Green.
Man.
I think Green is the prep bat that's in free fall.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because
I
the question
agree.
about him is the hit tool, and that's: are you going to spend $6 million on a guy you're not sure is going to hit? Like I wouldn't.
I don't think Termar is a fall candidate for much longer just because of how good of a hitter he is.
Yeah.
Well, that's what. Good for Kumar Rocker. That's a cool
Good for
story,
him,
man. A
Yeah,
guy who
absolutely.
had
That
to,
is a road right there.
Yeah, he had to
That's a story.
endure basically a year of not being able to do anything, and he had shoulder surgery, but apparently the Rangers were cool with it, and now you wonder, like, what the hell, Mets? What was?
The rules.
So they redid the
Lighter and Rocker.
Vandy
That's amazing.
rotation is right back together again.
Well, Kumar Rocker has changed the rules of the MLB draft
Yeah,
because of what happened last year. So coming in, there's 2 teams that actually could not draft him because if you're drafted by a team and you don't sign, you have the option of saying, no, I don't want to be drafted by them again. And I know that he said no to Colorado, was the first team to draft him, and I have to guess he said no to the Mets.
Yes, I would think so, yes.
After the whole ordeal last year. So now in the draft, you don't have to present your full medicals. You can give them the medicals that work, but last year, that was one of the big issues with the Mets is they didn't get either the full medicals. They didn't like what they saw in the full medicals, so they didn't offer Kumar Rocker enough money for him to say, hey, I'm going to sign with you guys. So now the Mets get an extra pick, and Kumar Rocker's going 3rd overall.
Yeah.
So, by the way, Chris, do we have Justin on the line with us? Awesome. All right, so we'll bring Justin in. Justin Lada from Guardians Baseball Insider. He's coming in. He was with us last year when we had all the audio issues. Stuck around for a good solid hour or two. And Justin, are you there?
Actually, I think we may have lost it.
Oh, all right.
Well, let's just say this then that that makes pretty good sense for Texas. I mean, this is a team that spent a ton of money. They're trying to win. Kumar Rocker's about as major league ready a semi-college pitcher as you're going to pull. So it all fits for them really well.
It basically goes right to Trevor's point. It just, instead of taking an advanced college bat, they take an advanced college pitcher. And I'm really curious to see what they do with him this year. Does he go to the minors? Do they just hold off for the rest of the year and ramp him up next year? Because he could probably go right to AA like Leiter did.
Yeah.
I think straight path to AA isn't out of the question at all.
Well, this is the one question with Kumar Rocker.
Some durability issues. You might want to be more careful building him up still. But as far as pitchability, yeah, he's ready to do that for sure, I think.
And one of the biggest issues with Kumar Rocker, the one criticism really that he was taking the entire draft cycle last year, is not his talent, because he was already probably a close to MLB ready arm. But where do you go from here with Kumar Rocker? Does he have a ceiling, or is he already at his floor, which is basically also his ceiling?
Yeah.
So with that, it might be just a case of he needs innings under his belt professionally, and then he's in Texas, and he could be the first guy drafted this year that breaks into the major leagues.
Yeah.
Someone tell me that Cam Collier is going to fall to us now.
That would be nice.
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, that would be outrageous. Outrageous.
Take a JUCO guy.
Yeah, but youngest player in the draft, can really hit, left-handed third baseman. I mean,
Going to redeem the Ray
right-handed.
Rivera draft pick.
Well,
Oh, man, that was
I
a
believe they're from
Chipola.
the same school, are they
Yeah,
not?
Chipola.
Yeah, Chipola.
Yeah, Chipola.
Yeah.
Chipola.
Yeah. Chipotle? No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Chipotle Academy.
Yeah, so far the picks, it's all been bloodlines. As somebody mentioned here, Detroit Dabbler 313 in our YouTube chat. So if you're watching us on YouTube, participate in the chat. I'm in there right now. It's all bloodlines. There's a lot of bloodlines in this draft. even with you had Jung, whose brother was drafted by Texas, and then even with Cross, his father Adam played for the Braves and the Padres for a little while. So that bloodline stuff is going to be continue to be interesting. Pittsburgh's pick is in. We'll see what they're going with. But as far as Pittsburgh's projected to go, I mean, I know that they went the smartest man in the room last year with the catcher situation with Henry Davis, and
Hey, watch yourself.
I didn't say that.
I love me some Henry Davis.
Well,
man.
that was a bonus pool situation.
Right.
With that, they were also able to get
Bubba
Chandler, and a couple other players.
Solometto.
Yeah,
and
Anthony Solometto, who
they
you saw, Raj. You saw him pitching down in Lakeland, I think.
Yeah.
They stacked their draft up. Like, they kept drafting
That kid's
guys.
good,
And
by the way.
He is. They kept drafting guys wherever. I mean, I'm just looking at the draft. Like, they're not going to have money for all this. They signed them all.
Yeah.
Lonnie White is another one.
Yeah.
They signed them all.
The kid from Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah.
Or he's going to Penn State.
No relation to the original Lonnie White, right?
I doubt it. But speaking of bloodlines, it's not baseball bloodlines, but Elijah Green, who we're predicting for free fall here, has professional athlete bloodlines. His dad was, I believe, a tight end in the NFL.
Yeah, Eric Green.
Yeah.
Two-time Pro Bowler, I believe. Like
There you go.
not just a tight end. He was a really good one. And Elijah Green, he's another guy who's hard to comp. The best I could come up with was like prime Matt Kemp, just like a 6'4" center fielder with 70 power and 70 speed. It's just a matter of can he hit, and that's the guy. Like, that's the dream scenario, right? That he falls to Tigers and somehow they get him and sign him, because that's the guy with the highest upside in the draft. Probably it's just it's very risky.
We did get a question in the YouTube chat. Who's a pitcher or hitter that might be better than where they got drafted?
In this year's draft,
Yeah.
I guess we got to wait to see everybody get drafted first. But
Yeah, but I mean, but then we saw that last year. There was a couple situations where maybe a reach.
Yeah, a lot of that comes down to what happens after draft day when the organization gets a hold of them and starts working on development for them. I mean, right now, let's just
Tamar
look at the
Johnson.
Tigers. All right.
Termarr Johnson went fourth. Or
I love Tamar Johnson. There's your answer. I think he could be better than one I love this guy.
I think Termarr is my favorite prospect in the
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
draft. I would have taken him one for real.
I call him Captain Bat Speed. But
Unbelievable.
just back to Termarr in a second. But just to finish off that last point of what happens with these teams, bring it to the Tigers. Skubal is much better than where he was drafted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that's what happens once these they get into the system and the teams start to do what they want.
As far as even like we look at some of the recent Tiger history with the draft, and I was going through the Excel document, and it just dawned on me that as far as a type goes, we looked at the pick for 51 that for mock drafts that had him with a right-hander out of Georgia, 6'6".
Jonathan Cannon.
Jonathan Cannon with the name, with a sweet name, and last year, or even with the Colt Keith pick, this is where we saw something different. And Brandon, you have been a draft junkie just as much as I have in terms of following the Tigers process. I remember you were pretty intrigued about Colt Keith, and as much as Chris and I was, and that kind of showed a little bit of a different chain where it's like, oh, wait a minute, it's not a foregone conclusion they're going to pick a type.
Yeah, that was an interesting pick just because, I mean, obviously it's a short draft, and to land a prep bat in the 5th round wasn't the kind of thing you would expect the Tigers to do very often. They saved a little bit of money there. They got Gage Workman, who was also at least young for a college player. So there was pretty good value there. And yeah, I mean, that was the draft where I think we started looking at the Tigers rather than getting locked in on one player or one type. They kind of just laid back and let what fall to them come and just, made the right pick as it played out. So, yeah, I mean, I think that was kind of a sign that at least the overall draft strategy was changing. And things have been a little more positive since then. We can still, we can argue Joe Mayer forever. But yeah, I mean, overall, they've done a lot better job using their whole pool and the draft overall than they used to.
Scott, I just saw this because you're the youngest. Well, you and David both are the young guys in here. That Tamar Johnson was the 2019 Perfect Game Player of the Year at 14U.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah.
In 2019?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's wait, 3 years ago?
Yeah,
Fair.
yeah.
Whatever. Okay.
I mean,
So,
Do it again.
Time has passed. Yes.
yeah, that's
So,
nuts.
by the way, Adam in our YouTube chat suggesting that Avila trades a pick for a 2-year supply of Gatorade. But the Pirates,
If only they could trade.
if only they could trade. But the Pirates, in terms of draft history and how their development, we saw him last year basically say, anything we're going to trade a value of money, we're just going to strip it down to the bare bones. And there was a long wait for O'Neill Cruz to come up. The Pirates are always an interesting organization in a sense that sometimes I feel like it's either they do it on the cheap or do they really have a... I mean, I think they have a somewhat of a development process. And Trevor, we wrote up some prospects for Prospects Live at one point for the Pirates. Where are they at currently right now amongst their development?
They are still facing the fallout of going scorched earth because they traded everyone and they brought in some good talent, and I think last year's draft really helped them. I don't know that the talent they got was necessarily everything they were looking for, but then you go out and you have a draft like you did last year. That changed their entire farm system because they were just getting guys who were probably first to third rounders, and they're getting them in like the 10th, 11th round, and everybody's like, oh, well, they're just taking them so they can, talk to the high school kid and maybe build a relationship. No, they signed them. So I think they're in a good spot in terms of having guys with upside now, and it'll remain to be seen if their development plan for them will work. They got Henry Davis 1-1. He's been a little bit injured and working through some stuff, but they definitely have the talent there to mold. It's just going to be interesting to see how they go about molding it.
The Pirates have been interesting in terms of developing position players reasonably well, but they just have that specter over their heads from the Garrett Cole, Tyler Glasnow, on and on. They just had all these huge arms and kind of frittered it all away. Of course, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, you see, they have a lot of those pitchers that have developed elsewhere, similar to what people are saying, quote unquote, with the Tigers. But
yeah, maybe don't trade Austin Meadows, or do trade Austin Meadows. Don't trade for Austin Meadows because he was in that Tyler Glasnow trade for Chris Archer.
It's amazing. It blows me away how many former Pirates out there that are just the Yankees. I think use the Pirates as their farm system. I mean, it's true. I mean, they have. I know they have. The Pirates have that Contreras guy, and I think it's
Runzi.
Yeah, Runzi Contreras, who's looked really good when we saw him last year in Erie. But it's one of those things where I'm waiting for the Pirates to, like, for example, when O'Neill Cruz becomes trade eligible, they'll trade him, and it seems like it's a vicious cycle. But I mean, Kamar, their third baseman, it's Hayes. The guy's really good. They got some
Brian
good.
Hayes.
They have some
Keep
good
Brian
guys
Hayes,
there.
more bloodlines.
Yeah, more bloodlines. So
Charlie Hayes.
The great Charlie Hayes.
I'm really curious to see what Washington does here. I mean, they need everything.
Yeah.
So do they? Washington has always kind of been a team that hasn't been afraid to go for upside. Go for guys with Tommy John surgery, but they don't care. They'll get Lucas Giolito, things like that. So I wonder if this is where Green lands. If not, it might not be another 5 picks for him.
I don't know. But you got to think Washington very well could get 2 first-round picks, who they pick now, and then whoever's included in the Juan Soto trade.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, then mention here, I think they talk about the farm system need MLB-ready position players. Their AAA team in Rochester is atrocious.
Their AA team's bad too. They're one of the worst farm systems in baseball. Yeah.
Yeah, they're ranked. Yeah, and they're right now. Even Kate Cavelli's not a sure thing. You know what? What if they shot? Would you think they shock the world and go with a pitcher here? Nah.
Boy.
I'd go Kevin Parada.
Kevin Parada.
I know they have Ruiz. Scott wants a catcher. I know they have Keibert Ruiz that they just traded for and but I think that if they need high upside guys and they need a MLB ready bats, I think Kevin Parada is about as close as you're going to get. Whether he catches or not, you can put him somewhere, and the bat should play. It's a very, very good bat.
By the way, shout out to Kearney from the Turn the Corner podcast, giving us a shout out on Twitter. So, thank you, sir. He's the. I thought it was
taking a long time to make this pick here.
Yeah,
we're gonna get
interesting
passed
enough.
up. Is it classic?
I wonder if they're gonna pull a Vikings
Miami's
and
gonna
forget
pop in there.
turn in the pick. So we'll see what happens here as they go to commercial. But no, the Nationals need a little bit of everything, and you know what? Even it wouldn't surprise me if they chose either a pitcher or somebody like Cam Collier, because I don't know, they seem like unpredictable with that. And after that, the Miami Marlins picked. And speaking of the Marlins, by the way, Max Meyer made his debut last night, correct?
I believe he did.
Yep. Looked good for a few innings and then ended up giving up 5 runs, I think. Give up a home run to, who is it that hit him? Rhys Hoskins hit a home run off of him. I saw that.
Yeah, that's again, Miami's doing a brilliant job of developing their system. They got Alcantara. They got a lot of pitching talent to look forward to. And that's a team that could trade with Washington. I mean, I think they have enough prospects if they want to trade with Washington.
I think they could. I doubt they would.
Yeah.
But I think they could. And you know what? Speaking of Max Meyer, somebody on day 2 is going to get the Max Meyer of this draft in Landon Sims.
Well, there you go.
He was hurt, but he's got the same. He's got a really, really nice slider, and he's got that big fastball. And, day 2, I don't know when on day 2. It's probably going to be in the comp rounds, but Landon Sims should go pretty early on day 2, and that's kind of the Max Meyer of this draft in terms of the stuff he provides.
As far as Juan Soto goes, in terms of what team potentially, there's always going to be the Yankees rumored, of course, because that's the way it is. Boston, it's the same 3-4 damn teams every time. But as far as where do you think he's end up going, Brandon, do you have any guesses where he's going to go?
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm managing Bless You Boys at the moment, Raj.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Why would you do your job?
I know.
Scott, where do you think he's going to go? Or,
I mean, like you said, it really is just a cluster of like the same 4 or 5 teams. And now there was a thing today. Somebody wrote, I forget who, but somebody wrote a thing where it's going to be like the Battle of New York, and it's going to be between the Yankees and the Mets and whatever. So like, who knows? They are going to offer him one more contract, I guess. And then if that one is declined, then he's for sure getting traded. But I guess they got one more they're going to offer up to him, and I can't imagine it's. I mean, what was that? 440-15? Like,
yeah.
I can't imagine that it's going to be much more than 450-15. Like, I can't imagine them going too much higher. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Who knows though? Like, sure, one of the New York teams, I guess. Like, who knows?
So it's funny, like, given the Nationals' history of making contracts deferred, like putting half of it. I think Max Scherzer's still getting $15 million a year from them right now.
Yes.
I was like, I wonder if it was like a 45-year, $10 million a year deal for him. So just, lifetime of money. I think, given that the Nats and the Dodgers made a big trade recently, I think the Dodgers are another fit because they can not only offer you prospects because they're great at developing prospects every year, they could probably afford to part with Gavin Lux and Dustin May. Like, they're young, big league ready players and be fine.
This is Juan Soto. You part with anybody they ask first.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
But, I mean, it's more about who the Nats want. And I can see them wanting some guys who have some MLB success already.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
There's
need
a lot
to.
more certainty there when you're trading a player that you have to get a lot of talent back for sure. Yeah,
So
actually, I think the Dodgers make good sense. It'd be fun if the Rangers went nuts on this one, too.
Yeah.
Considering the way they've been diving in head first the last year.
So the pick is in for the Nationals. It'll be announced here in just a second. And that will be pick number 5. So we're breezing through this pretty quick. What I like about the MLB draft, unlike the NFL draft, there's a lot of pageantry. There's a fashion show at the NFL draft. I think the NBA draft's pretty...
There's a red carpet.
We got red carpet.
Literal red carpet.
Baseball doesn't believe in red carpets. I guess I don't really know what they're...
I'm sure they would love to have all that.
Oh,
in
yeah,
Major
they
League
want to,
Baseball.
but they don't know how to because they alienate their younger fans, and they have no idea how the Twitter talks. And
we literally
TikToks
talked about it earlier. Like, the NHL draft has the same thing where you're not seeing a lot of these guys for 2 to 4, 5 even years.
Yeah.
And yet they have a huge, they fill out an arena with all like the things.
Elijah
Wow.
Elijah Green.
Green, there you go.
So I guess he's not in free fall.
Green. No,
Yes.
well, I mean, I think
No longer free fall.
He
And
free
that's-
fell all the way down, up picks from where he was projected.
to me that fits the Nats motif, right? Like
Fall
they are not as afraid of risk at all. We were David was quizzing us on the way home from the Whitecaps game last night, and it reminded me of their draft pick Seth Romero, who was a kid out of Houston who had been suspended and kicked out of school and had like every possible red flag it could have, and they're like, we like his arm, we'll take him in the first round. They just do that, and they've had some success with that, so I just doesn't shock me at all. And the reward is a potential franchise outfielder, which they could probably use soon.
Yeah.
With the current franchise outfielder on the way out.
So we've seen all prep bats and then whatever you consider Kumar Rocker.
Yeah.
He's not really college.
That's an indie ball player.
Yeah, indie ball.
But the big shock, Roger was saying, the latest a pitcher had ever been taken was 7th overall, I think, and we were expecting nobody to go before in the top 10 this year, and to go 3rd, that was a shocker.
And by the way, in terms of Johnson said he was the Pirates he's the best pick in the draft, so he's that confident that he'll be a big impact.
That kid's
agree with
awesome.
him. Yeah.
He's a great kid. If you watched him talk during the MLB Combine on MLB Network, you're like, yeah, you can't come away not liking that kid. So hopefully he hits. I think he will. And I remember that the comp that Jim Callis said he heard from a scout was he's got Wade Boggs' understanding of the strike zone and Vladimir Guerrero Sr.'s ability to hit. It was like,
That
all right.
seems good.
Yeah, fair enough. 2 Hall of Famers.
I would take that, honestly, I think, if I were putting a team together.
Hot take. I like that.
But for the Tigers, we're all scared to death of them taking those high-risk guys because
Yeah.
we haven't really seen, we just haven't seen them put that kind of thing together, which is probably, not that we don't like Jace Jung a lot, but that part of the reason he became kind of, the guy du jour over the last couple days, besides a couple of prominent national writers, kind of linking them to him, was because, you've got a safe college bat with fantastic plate discipline who doesn't need a whole lot of work. He just needs to face better caliber of pitching and see how he adjusts. And that's the trick when you're covering the Tigers, is that you just don't know how much of a risk you're willing to take because we just haven't seen them be a really strong development team.
And Young has power. That's
Yeah.
When you look at the Tigers' pitching development, they've been isolating guys who have at least one pitch that has really good spin metrics and other data behind it. That's how Jackson Jobe happened. He's got a 3,000 to 3,200 RPM slider, which is good.
How's the IVB?
Yeah, it's So IVB's all right. It's still but it doesn't have everything. But it's still, that's what they wanted for arms because they knew they could develop it. So when you look at bats, they want to identify the traits that they like so they can develop from there. So the bats they've been getting recently, you think about Roberto Campos, they signed an international free agency. Isaac Pacheco, we're seeing what they're doing with Kerry Carpenter and adding a ton of power to him. And Wensil Perez, Andre Lipschitz, they're all starting to have a little bit more power. They want guys with power. And so if Young has power, I think that fits into what the Tigers have been looking for lately.
Especially with the development of Parker Meadows, who didn't have any power. He was always, every time I felt like he rolled over the ball quite a bit. It was always a grounder. He was trying to bunt for some strange reason, and he got a little bigger, and he's showing promise right now in Erie, where he's gotten even like a guy like Roberto Campos and Lakeland. Let's talk about Lakeland for a moment here, because Miami's on the clock at the moment, and they got the pickers in. Lakeland has a couple guys now with power. Christian Santana leads all the Florida State League in home runs. He strikes out a little bit, but so what? Roberto Campos is just 18. He's hitting the ball pretty well, over 100 miles an hour each time, and he's still developing his swing. Are they ready to go high A? No, but on the international side, we're seeing some things. And Chris and Brandon, you guys have both known full well the international side of things have been pretty much dookie.
And since basically Willi Adames, we haven't seen a whole lot of excitement come out of there. Yeah, at least you've got guys like Manuel Sequeira, who's at least got power. A lot of swing and miss issues, but at least he's driving the ball. It does seem to be getting better. One theory I've had the past couple years is that once the Tigers got invested in the tech and understood, better, what to look for in terms of pitching, it just becomes so much easier when you have, measurable stuff where, okay, this guy has a huge spin rate. You can sell that to the fans. It sounds like a smart move, but over time that can become a trap of its own where you're just drafting people because you can make a good argument for it.
Mm-hmm.
So the Marlins just picked
Jacob Berry?
What a
Jacob
pick.
Berry, yeah.
They wanted a corner outfielder. There you go, apparently.
chaos.
Yeah.
So we've
Okay, so they announced him as a right fielder. See, this is the main thing. This is why I came in saying the one guy I didn't want is Jacob Berry. And it's not because he's not uber talented. He's one of the better hitters in this draft. But where does he play? He didn't have a position as a college guy, so you're taking a guy, you got to teach him basically how to field. And that could be a really long road. So interesting they announced him as a right fielder. Because he'd been playing, I think he played there maybe once or twice at LSU, but he's been mostly first.
He was playing third base.
He's played a lot of third. He's played corner.
Right.
He has
left.
played corner outfield. He's been all over the place.
So, the first base they had Morgan, right? The kid from next year, and it is. You hear him comped to switch hitting Andrew Vaughn in terms of the bat. I've also heard though that his underlying exit velocities aren't all that impressive. So it's are you getting an above average hitter with average power, above average power, plus power. You don't know.
Yeah, and that's the kind of pick that you probably wouldn't see made before the DH came to the National League. Obviously, they need that option for him.
And it's kind of shocking to me because you want a switch hitter who can hit. Kevin Parano is right there too. I mean, he's a catcher, but he's another guy like you might be able to move him to first base if you don't want to bother with teaching him the finer points of catching. And he was one of the best hitters in college baseball this year.
Yeah,
but here's where the money comes into play.
Catching, maybe the finer points in catching may not be as important in 2 years, and we don't know how much teams are planning for the end of framing and all that.
Because the Marlins are going to save money here. This is where the money comes in. They have $10 million. They're among the top probably 10, 12 teams in terms of having money. So you save money on Barry, they're going to be able to reach a little bit with their next pick.
When's their next pick? Is it they're picking? They have a comp pick. They probably
They
always
should have
have
a
a competitive
comp pick,
balance. Yeah, the Marlins.
So
they need all the competitive balance they can get.
So as far as the Cubs go, Cubs are up next. They're on the clock about a minute before their pick. Here's where it's going to get interesting because you have Chicago, Minnesota, then Kansas City. So you got two divisional rivals who basically give you the finger. And Minnesota, I could see Gavin Cross going there. It fits that Minnesota type of vibe to him, definitely, because an outfielder that can play all three positions, has power, definitely in Minnesota's motif. Kansas City, I'll ask you guys this. What does Kansas City do here? I mean, they are a talent. I mean, as far as second, they can go infield. You see them going outfield.
That's tough. They just kind of do a little bit of everything. They do their own thing. I think in a lot of years. One year they went all pitching, and that gave them Singer and Coar and and that whole group. And I think they probably take Collier if he's still there.
I mean, Kansas City, one thing we learned from the 2018 draft is Kansas City will let players fall to them and take whoever is there. And so they're going to have their choice of Collier, Parada, or Brooks Lee. Brooks Lee's still on the board. And I think I get a feeling Collier's going to go to the Cubs here. But if not, so they're going to have their choice from one of those three. Or if they want, there have been a lot of rumors that they might take Justin Crawford, the son of Carl Crawford.
Yeah.
Which again could be a money-saving deal.
Well, and that's their next Lorenzo Cain, maybe.
Yeah, I mean he's a really talented kid. You just need got to kind of project the power and hit a little bit.
Yeah, no, he's going to have enough impact. Yeah,
but Brooks Lee probably fits that Minnesota. I would say Brooks Lee, Gavin Cross, and Chase DeLauder fit that Minnesota profile of just this big dude that's going to slug.
In Kansas City, what worries me is that Kansas City could pick up Cato or
Zach Neto.
Yeah, Neto.
At this point, I'm thinking he's going to go for a while. I mean, with the other college bats on the board, it'd be interesting to see if he goes above Brooks Lee. That'd be a shocker.
Yeah, and this is going to be right here. The Cubs, I think, are going to set the tone for the next two picks. But then again, where do the Cubs go from here? I mean, they need a little bit of everything. They traded everybody off. They're building a sports book at Wrigley Field now. So there's numerous things they could do here at this pick, at pick number 7.
Let me throw a wrench in here for you, Rogelio.
Yeah.
Dylan Lesko.
Oh, I like it.
To the Cubs.
I can see that.
I think that would make sense for what they do. I think they'd probably trust their hitting development, which has been really good lately, to go with later picks and kind of do that. They got Christian Franklin that way by just waiting on him. So I think you maybe let's go take the upside pick here because they've been pretty good with those prep arms.
Yeah, they've been able to develop, and this is a team. The Cubs do need pitching across the board as their system. You've seen Mark Leiter Jr. out there. I mean, again, it's going to be a while.
Old friend
of the Tigers, and so we're going to announce the Cubs here pick as their Manfield is up. Manfield is up, and the Cubs select. Whoa! More chaos.
Oh,
Chaos.
In a word.
Wow.
Chaos.
Cade Horton.
That is now another awesome story. We mentioned on the podcast a couple weeks ago. This is a kid who he was a top 50, top 60 prospect in the draft 2 years ago, but wanted to play both ways for Oklahoma and also kind of, I think, was a bit of a football prospect. I think baseball was always a better sport. But, he looked good his freshman year and then blew his arm out. And came back this year and spent, the first 6 weeks hitting and just got on the mound a little bit after that and struggled for 7-8 starts. And then apparently he was trying to develop a cutter. and accidentally developed a nasty slider.
Yeah.
And went ham. In his last 5 starts, it was like
His College World Series.
yeah, he set a record for the most strikeouts in the College World Series final, 13 in a game.
He was kind of getting held back a little during the year because he was still recovering from Tommy John, and then they just unleashed him in the playoffs. And the best way I can describe Cade Horton is that if Jackson Jobe were a college pitcher, it's Cade Horton.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. It's a nasty, nasty slider, and the fastball's in the mid-90s, and like they're showing it on the screen right here.
Yeah, he's got good ride.
Yeah.
7.94 ERA before the final 5 starts, and then 2.61 after. 38% swing and miss rate. Yeah, he took off, and it's a really cool story because this is a guy 2 months ago probably wouldn't have been drafted in the top 5 rounds, maybe not in the top 10, and now he's going to get, I don't know, $5 million, $4 million.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna like early 20s.
So
Slot value for that
right.
pick is a little bit under $6 million, $5,708,000.
So this is kind of fascinating.
Yeah,
We've
it seems
got
like they could save some money there too, for sure.
So the Tigers should get somebody fun here. That's what I'm taking away.
Yeah, the options are coming together a little bit. Yeah.
we've got Parada, Collier, and Brooks Lee are all still on the board.
Yeah.
And two of those 3 can't last to the next 2 picks.
I wouldn't think so, but maybe you never know. When one of the rumors with last year was the Tigers already had a deal with Jackson Jobe, and so when Meyer fell to them, they weren't ready or did whatever. So maybe Minnesota or Kansas City has a deal with an underslot guy, and that's going to be what they take.
Yeah, and I think Pleiss the other day was talking about the fact that they used to kind of do sort of like the college cram session, like the last week of the draft, and it led to some chaos and some burnout in the decision making, and so they tried to be way more prepared in advance. But if that leaves you unready to flex around, depending on what falls to you, that could be a problem. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what's left here. That's for sure. This is not going like I thought. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Nor I.
Chaos.
I love chaos. This is a chaos.
Yeah. Trevor was
chaos.
predicting chaos for sure. We're 1 hour into the draft, and we've had 2 really wow picks.
So Minnesota's on the clock now, and we were talking about them a little earlier. But as far as what they need and what their farm system looks like, gentlemen, it seems like Minnesota on the international side, Chris and I were talking about this earlier in the week, they kill it on the international side so well. Jose Miranda, you talking about the guy who leads Luis Arai, who leads the American League in hitting, and you have Polanco. They are fantastic with that. I wish the Tigers could do even a quarter of that, but they're not. But what is something that you guys have noticed? Scott, I'll start with you in terms of the Twins. What is something you noticed that the Twins could use?
Well, I mean, the fascinating part is the Twins have a better draft pick than, if you want to relate this back to the Tigers, and they're at the top of the division. Like that's a fun position to be in. You know, having a top 10 pick while being first place in your division. I think the biggest thing right now would be pitching. If you want to look at the major league side of things, after doing half fire sale last year and then turning around and again are now first place in a really weak division. So I think, but again, like we've been talking about all night, how the pitching side of things on in this draft is maybe a little shallower, not weaker, but shallower. So it'll be interesting. I mean, they could absolutely go with an arm. I mean,
yeah, they're going to have their choice in arms, and that's kind of been their weakness over the last decade or so.
Yeah, or 2. Yeah.
Going back to Johan Santana, basically.
They just go high upside, probably. Whatever falls high upside. They've shown they're not afraid to trade him. Chase Petty was their first-round pick last year, and they just traded him to Cincinnati. Was that last year or was that the year before?
That was last year.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, that was last year. It's Chase Petty. So, and that's a hard-throwing turbo sinker guy. So maybe they go hard thrower, and they do go Brock Porter, who can touch 99 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, that fits that mold. But I think they might go prep pitching, or they might go with just a big power hitting, slugging, whatever position they can find.
Bohemian.
Yeah.
They got to take Collier, right? Come on.
I can see them taking Parada. I mean, they've moved a lot of catching in recent years, and they're who is it? The one guy's hurt right now. Not that it's matter there, but
Rodovert.
Yeah, or it's the other dude. Not Rodovert. They have another catcher. But in any event, they've got some good choices here. So I'm kind of fascinated to see where this goes, because I mean, at this rate, some of the guys we were talking about are almost certain to be available for the Tigers. Jace Young, Gavin Cross. I mean,
Gavin Cross feels twinsy a
he
little
does.
bit to me.
Yeah, I
too.
mean, it's
that's a good
those,
call.
when they kept taking those corner outfielders, the Matt Wallners, and they took Brent Rooker that one year, and they took Trevor Larnach. Did they have no? Wallner was to the Marlins.
Larnach,
What about
Kirilov.
Brooks? What
Kirilov,
about Brooks
yeah.
Lee?
Kirilov, yeah.
Brooks Lee would be a good pick too. Like, he's a guy that I was saying before. I wonder if he might fall just because of. I mean, he was considered the best college hitter in this draft for the most part. And there's a bug on my face, but yeah. So
That's a wonderful follow-up.
yes. But he's a guy who's had some pretty gnarly injuries, including one where it was like a broken bone and a torn muscle at the same time. It was brutal.
If you want to talk about like variancy of like mocked, where they're mocked to, Brooks Lee is, every site he's anywhere from like 4 all the way down into like the late teens. Even
he's been as high as 1.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's all over the place. So
Yeah, I mean, I thought some people thought he would be an ideal kind of fit for the Orioles, as they often have gone college hitter, and he was, a long track record of hitting well and probably get a deal on him. But
Yeah, and it was also kind of a good park for him before they changed everything.
Yeah.
There's always those little power concerns with him. So, yeah, you could see him going to a team that, doesn't worry so much about that.
I think the Twins might be really excited to see what they do here too.
yeah,
I don't know if they thought they'd have so many options.
It's taken a while, that's for sure. Let's see if we got any scuttlebutt on the internet.
Yeah, they're making making frantic phone calls with numbers. Yeah,
They're falling all over the place to get to the pick right now. That's essentially
You know
what's
what's
going
funny
on.
is I remember reading one rumor, and it was I think maybe it was in Keith Law's piece or something like that. There's some crazy rumors that they might go Ivan Melendez here at 8.
That
the
would be
Twins.
awesome.
Wow.
And Ivan Melendez, of course, was the Golden Spikes winner this year for Texas. Hit 32 home runs, just a monster. But
Is
he's
that it?
first base only.
Seems like he hit
Is
like
that
50 home runs.
I mean, you want to talk about another story too?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Because he
Golly.
was a guy who was drafted last year and didn't sign, went back to school.
Awesome nickname too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've got some issues with this. He's the Hispanic Titanic, and I don't know why you have to add the Hispanic just because it
Yeah.
rhymes with Titan. Why can't you just call him the Titanic or the Titan?
Yeah.
He's a big dude. You have to throw the Hispanic in there. That's too many syllables.
It's just the fact is too that a lot of the fans, by the way, in our YouTube chat, don't want any input from Al Avila on this pick. And I mean, he has after the first pick, essentially the scouting director takes over. Correct?
Al Avila is a scout. He came up as a scout. He's gone to see some of these guys. He's going to have input on this pick. He was actually probably a pretty good scout. He just might not be a great GM.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a great scout in a pretty different time. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Old school scout. Here's the Twins selection at pick number 8, and they are going with, as I'm close caption reading, Brooks Lee.
So there's
as
there you
highly
go.
predicted.
Yeah, there it
So
is.
they took the big-bodied slugger.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's a switch hitting middle infielder. I kind of reminds me a little bit of like, you remember Michael Young from
Yes.
the Rangers?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
he played shortstop for a long time, but really wasn't necessarily a great shortstop. But he could hit the hell out of the ball, and he wasn't like a big power guy, but he was such a good hitter that he stayed, and he was an all-star several times. And I get that feel from Brooks Lee. His dad's was the coach there at Cal Poly, and like a renowned hitting instructor, which always seems like a good idea.
I was trying to think of who I was thinking of. Michael Kadire.
Oh, Michael Kadire. Yeah.
What a last few years Cal Poly's had as a baseball program. I mean, they've really taken a lot of steps forwards over the last half decade or so.
You got a coach like that. I mean, and his
Absolutely.
uncle played in the bigs. I think I don't remember his name. Unfortunately, I have to do some research here. But that's a great pick for the Twins.
One of the things you love about Brooks Lee, he's 6'2", 205 is what he's listed at. So he's a big dude, first of all, but he's so fluid when you watch him play defense on the infield. He's got a fluid arm. I think his instincts on the dirt are really good. So I think he's announced as a third baseman. That was interesting. I was wondering where they would announce him, right? Because he played shortstop at Cal Poly. I think he could probably handle shortstop in a pinch, but he's got the arm certainly to play third. And I think it looks like that's what the Twins plan for him to do is get you a big corner that can move pretty well.
With very good upside.
Yeah, I mean
too.
the range at shortstop probably wouldn't be enough, but they could have Spencer Torkelson announced him as as a shortstop for sure.
among the tool in terms of hit tools. If you look at grades, if you look at, for example, Baseball America does their grades on 75, 80, 65, 70. So 75, 80 is a franchise player, and for a pitcher that'd be the number 1 starter. You have perennial all-star, number 2 starter. So one of the things that stands out about Brooks is his hit tool is 65. So he's got a really good hit tool, and that could make him a potential, in terms of a stud at third base, and it continues the trend of the Twins. Also, I'm trying to think of another. They had another third baseman. I'm trying to think of. They used to cause a bunch of headaches for the
Punto?
Tigers. Punto. Nick Punto.
Nick Punto.
Good Lord. Nick Punto.
Cardinal legend.
Cardinal legend Nick Punto.
Punto and the Piranhas.
Yeah.
I mean, with Brooks Lee, it's the track record is impeccable. He hit 400 in college, I think. Hit 300 for Team USA, or he hit 400 in the Cape Cod League, which is usually, wait, is that for Team USA? He hit 400. I'm sorry. So that was a good sign, and I mean, he's just got a long track record of hitting, and I think the reason he fell was just those injuries. I think teams might be a little bit wary of, because I think he had hamstring and back issues before he even got to college.
Yeah, and then it was like a knee hamstring combo. Yeah. That's kind of grim, but
He could have priced himself down too.
That's
a
true.
lot of these guys may not want to go to certain teams, and they can. I know that you're a professional baseball player, right? But you can give a price that's way too high. For all we know, that happened with Marcelo Mayer last year. The Tigers met with him, and he said, "This is my price; it's way too high," and he gave a completely different price to the Red Sox.
Yeah.
So he could have priced himself out. He could have just fallen because of injuries. I mean, there's a lot that could have happened between he could go 1-1 and him going 8th overall.
So Prees in the YouTube chat thinks that the Royals is going to go with Cam Collier. What do you guys think the Royals is going to go with here?
That would make sense to me.
Cam Collier makes sense. Kevin Parada
I think
makes
Parada
sense.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, right when Salvador would be like kind of on the way out, or honestly retiring, that would be like right at the emergence of that. I think it makes a lot of sense.
I think it'd be a lot of fun to watch them duke it out.
Passing on Collier though, man, but he doesn't really feel like a Royals player.
Like
but
1 or 2 years of like a 50-50 split, like that would be really cool.
So with the Royals,
Well, a three-way split, 'cause you'd have MJ Melendez in the
yeah,
conversation
very true.
too.
Oh, yeah.
Gavin Cross.
Gavin Cross goes to the.
He
right.
goes.
That also makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That does.
So we have 3 picks until the Tigers go. Cam Collier is still on the board. Kevin Parada is still on the board. Nobody predicted that. And Jace Young is still on the board.
they're in pretty good shape here.
They're gonna
Any
get
one of
someone.
those three, I'll be content.
Yeah, and I would. Don't you feel like the Mets are going to take somebody like they're going to pay a lot of money to? Collier,
I think the
or-
Mets are going to take Porter.
I could see
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I 100% agree. Yeah.
So it depends on what Colorado wants to do, and Colorado is kind of, I think, also kind of a bit of a wild card.
So the nightmare scenario we're facing here, right, is that like Cam Collier is there for the Tigers at 12,
And they don't
and
pick
they
him.
take Connor Prelip.
Now, if that happens,
The Mets
I'm
might
really
take
just hoping.
Prelim too.
I'm really just hoping that was all just Al Avila's
there might be a lot of
presence
swear bombs
behind
in Spanish.
behind
That's
the
what
screen.
I was really hoping the Tigers were savvy enough to just put as much of that information out there as they could to hope that somebody else might take them or push them up. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Al just front and center behind the showcase, like making his presence felt.
I like Gavin Cross a lot, though.
Yeah.
That's.
What do you guys think about Nato?
I like Neto a
Nato's-
lot.
Yeah, Nato. If Nato's
I kind
there,
of like him better than Lee.
I like Nato.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
I that's another dude with a crazy track record for hitting.
Yeah, might need to clean a few things up, but you
Yeah,
know,
and it's a fun swing.
It is a fun swing.
Yeah, Trevor and I were talking before about like the leg kick was a big, I don't know if question mark's probably too dramatic or it has a negative connotation, but like that's the big thing. He's a massive leg kick, but gets around and catches up to every ball.
yeah.
And he tones it down with 2 strikes.
Yeah.
He just does like a little toe tap. So it's like he
Yeah.
knows what he has to do, and he's ready to launch early in the count, and he'll settle down and poke it the other way. And yeah, I mean he's a guy who could plausibly play shortstop. He's another guy that may be more of a second baseman,
Probably
but
Doesn't
he's got
feel
the
like
arm.
the Tigers would take a guy from Campbell, but
Yeah.
like could they just be scared maybe a bit?
It just
of the
he
track
does not
record,
feel
but-
like a Tigers pick, but I like him.
Yeah, I like him
So,
too.
Well, so
somebody in
with-
chat, by the way, said Hughes to Colorado.
Gabriel Hughes from Gonzaga.
That's what
Ah.
somebody said in there.
That would make sense for the Rockies to do that because the Rockies are a verb also.
Yeah, they Rockies. Well, it's like watching the NBA draft, right? You can always know that the Kings and the Knicks are going to do
the
Kings.
purple teams.
Right.
There it
Yeah,
is.
they're right.
Don't be purple. Yeah.
It took me a second to go, wait, Hughes from Gonzaga? What?
Yeah, Gabriel Hughes. Absolutely. He's like, first of all, he's definitely
he's a
not
good
bad.
pitcher.
Yeah.
He's definitely not bad. But that'd be interesting because he's like the 3rd best college arm in a group of college arms that really aren't that good to begin with.
Yeah.
Do you know? I mean, I don't know if he has the upside, but Colorado should draft pitching because they're not going to sign pitching because they play in Colorado.
Yeah.
Yep.
But so I just want to swing back to Nato for just 1 second.
Go for it.
With his setup, right? It's a really weird setup. He's got that leg kick, and everyone's worried about it. The thing is, in talking with a few different scouts, doesn't matter. He gets to the ball, right? That's the important thing. When you look at a lot of these guys, you can look at their mechanics and go, well, that's really weird. But do they get the job done? Does a hitter get to the ball? Does a pitcher throw strikes, or does the pitcher have a nasty breaking ball? That's a lot of times what the scouts want to see. So when you're looking at this draft stuff, you can hate the swing of Zach Neto all the time, and still teams are going to like it because he has the hands and the quickness to get to the ball.
Wow.
Gabriel Hooth. That's
It's official. So call there. It was, by the way, it was the gentleman, my guy Todd Howard, in the YouTube chat.
Heck of a call.
Well, Longenhagen mentioned it in the Fangraphs chat too. So yeah, that's Gabriel Hughes. I'm looking at his stats right this year: 98 innings, 3.21 ERA,
So we did
138 strikeouts against 37 walks.
Yeah,
So
so he's up to 97. He's got a really sharp slider that's in the mid 80s.
Adam says if you guys want to chime in on YouTube, go for it. He was wondering what would be the MLB ETA for the likely player they draft.
If
Well,
it's
depends.
If it's Collier, I mean, they now have their choice between the Colorado
Collier
pick is in.
Parada.
So Collier, Parada, or Prelip or Young.
Right.
If it's Collier, it's probably 4 years. I mean, he's 17 and a half. He could be like 3-year Riley Green prodigy. He's a great hitter. So
He's got Alex Mo.
And if it's Parada, you never know with catchers. If they keep him catching, it could take a little bit longer. But both of these guys are really advanced hitters. So
There's just one point that I want to make here about Collier. I know that it's a shiny prospect. This is mostly a devil's advocate point because I would love for them to take Cam Collier. But realize that Cam Collier is probably expecting a lot more money than what the Tigers slot is. And this is where the slot comes into play. This is where the total bonus pool money comes into play. The question is, do the Tigers have enough to sign Collier and not decimate their entire pool? Because they still have other picks to make in this draft. And their first-round pick is about half their pool, is what it's slated to be for slot. And I'm guessing Collier is going to have to be over slot, especially given his age. The fact that he can go back to college, I'm sure he'd get some pretty nice money in college if he wants to. So does he want to play for the Tigers is one question. What does it cost? And would that leave you open enough to put together a halfway decent draft class, or are you going all in on Cam Collier?
Yeah, there's the Mets. In terms of, would they be an likely pick for somebody like Cam Collier?
Yeah, they got 2 first-round picks. They got all the money in the world.
So Longenhagen has multiple sources saying Parada to the Mets. So it would be.
I love that.
They have. They have.
Love it.
Collier's there for the Tigers if they want him, if they can afford him, and if they want him. And that's a great point, Trevor, that I'd even consider is that they might want him, but maybe not at the price that he wants. Because this was a kid who was getting some top 5, top. There was even some people thought he might go 1-1 as discount. And
if you have your competitive balance pick and you have your third-round pick, then absolutely you have the money to make this move, even if you're going in blind. Because I don't know if the Tigers talked to Cam Collier even a little bit, so they might not know what his number's at. So if you can go in blind a little bit if you have a little more money, but by trading the comp B pick and by signing Erod and losing your third rounder, you're missing out on some money that makes a move like this that much more possible.
And this is the Mets too. The Mets don't they have a catching prospect in their system, right? That's
Francisco
Yeah,
Alvarez.
I was going to say Alvarez.
But Alvarez is pretty good defensively too, and he and Parado would probably be on the same track timeline-wise. So you're probably looking at one of them being your catcher, one of them DHing or going to the outfield, and I think Alvarez ends up being the catcher in that scenario. But you get 2 pretty good hitters that can play catcher.
So after the Mets pick, we're going to pretty much just wait and see. We're just going to talk Tigers the entire time. Even, like I said, I think we're going to stick around until after the first round, until the first round's over, how long you guys want to go. But thanks for everybody who's been participating in the chat. This has been fun. And, again, thank you for tuning in. But, yeah, the Mets, right now they have James McCann as their starting catcher. They don't need him to hit well, but he's doing well defensively. But
I do know that the Mets love Crawford. So if they don't go Parada, they might go Justin Crawford here.
Yeah, Justin Crawford's been also a big thing to go with.
So, yeah, to go back to Trevor's point, what do you got?
Passon just said the Mets are taking Parada.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
So the Tigers, their slot here for the 12th pick is $4.587 million, so a little bit more than $4.5 million. They could go up to $5 million pretty easily because of we haven't talked about it tonight, but there is a 5% overage that teams can do on their bonus pool, which would give them another $400,000, get them up to $5 million. They just have to pay taxes on that. But if you're Cam Collier, are you going to turn down $5 million in the hopes that you go
You might
2-3 picks higher? I don't know.
And there's one other aspect I think that makes, because you're looking at what, 20 rounds in this draft and $8 million to do it. But once you get past the 10th round, if you sign them for a certain amount, I think it was 100,000 was the number. But if it's 100,000 or less, they don't count against your bonus pool money.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you go over that, then they do. So that's another thing to consider as you work through here. But I think Collier would be awesome. I would be so elated with that. It just holding me back is, what does the money look like?
Yep.
So it doesn't look like it's going to matter.
It might be young.
Yeah, Eric Longenhagen says multiple sources have the Tigers taking Texas Tech second baseman Josh Young.
I'd be fine with that. I'd be fine with that.
I'm good with
I'm
it.
cool with it.
Very, very happy.
I'm very happy. If that's the case,
The Mets,
I'm cool with it.
the Mets may end up with Collier anyway.
Yeah.
Because the Angels are the only other team to pick in between Mets' first and second
they pick
pick.
number 14. Yeah.
So the Angels like to go arms. They could go, Porter or they'll probably go Prelip, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So the Mets might have looked at the board and said, you know what, we can get Collier anyway. We might not get Parada.
Or they could go with Porter, pick 14.
They could. Be interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe Porter goes into free fall and the Tigers get him at 51.
You never know.
Ty Madden
I don't know
last
what
year,
they'd
yeah.
be willing to pay Porter, or whether or not that might just be a little rich for their blood since he's got so many options.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to give me the bat, because if Young's the pick, gonna be the pick. David, I want you to get behind us in a second. And have you seen his swing? Can you demonstrate his swing for us behind us?
Jace Young, have you
Jace
seen
Young
his swing?
with the
Here, you want me to?
Kevin Youkilis-esque like swing.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see.
And
a
so this
sight.
is a guy who, and we've talked about Chris. We talked about his defensive. If the Tigers do pick him, which if it's all confirmed or not, this is a guy who struggled. He's a left-handed bat, 6 foot 205. Hit tool 60, power tool 60, run 40, arm 45. His field skills. This is where it gets kind of tricky for the Tigers because he didn't do too well at third, but second base seems to be in the long-term position for him.
Yeah.
Darn.
In a world where the shift still exists, you probably don't worry about it as much. He could be a shift-aided second baseman, basically. It's. I have I'm of two minds of that because he's a guy who has defensive questions because he's kind of got a thick lower half. He doesn't have a ton of range. The arm probably
Can't confirm.
It's
He's
happening.
gonna be the pick.
Jace Young.
Here we go.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
It's been the guy. I tweeted this morning, happy Jace Young to the Tigers Day.
Cody
did.
Saberhagen just reported it.
So, yeah, as I was saying, the only concern is that if he fills out even more and lacks the range to play second base, you're talking about left field, first base, maybe. In which case, and that always puts the onus on the bat even more. But this is a guy who was projected top 5 pick heading into this year because all he did was hit last year as a sophomore. All he's done this year is hit. He walked 10, 12 times more than he struck out.
Yeah.
Hit 14 home runs. Hit 3 something. I don't know. Let me look. 335, 481, 612. One of the best college hitters, and the only questions there really were his defense. So and his funky swing.
And he's
Yeah, a little
behind
bit of
us.
funky swing.
Yes.
He's right there.
He's in studio.
There you go. And he's not even swinging the bat, so that's got to be good news for his defense, right?
And when it was something that we talked with Joe about the other day is his brother Josh was a guy who there were some questions about him heading into the draft too. The Rangers took him 8th,
Yeah.
and he was a guy who he didn't pull the ball enough to hit for power, and there were questions about his ability to stay on the infield. And it sounds like he's just got absolutely terrific makeup, and he's addressed all those concerns in pro ball. And so you just hope that the younger brother has the same makeup, and he's got that Riley Green.
I mean, he does draw the same kind of grades. Like he's the team leader. He's an animal. He'll do whatever you need to get to change his body composition if needed to stay at second, whatever it takes. And maybe he'll be gone in another year. If we have some kind of weird DH second baseman, that works as long as he hits. Just hit.
Well, and scouts do think he can handle third base. Is
Yeah.
the thing is in a pinch if that's where you want him. The difference between what you're saying about Young and what was so concerning about Jacob Berry is that Jace Young can play defense at least a little, right? You're not
Yeah.
starting from zero. You're taking a guy and trying to improve his defense, but much like Spencer Torkelson in the debate of is he a third baseman or not, it doesn't necessarily matter. And the same thing I said about Torkelson is the same thing I'm going to say about Jace Young, and that is that he's got a ceiling to be plus raw power and plus hitter, if not better on both. And so you're not paying him to play third base or second base. He's got to do it because that's baseball, but you're paying him for the bat. So the fact that he can play there is what sets him apart from Barry for me, but at the end of the day, I like the bat more than I care about the defense.
Yeah, it's not a first base only profile or something. Yeah, they should be able to work with that. I'm pretty happy. Yeah, overall.
I threw a couple comps down in my little spreadsheet here, and one of them was this is kind of going back a little bit, but if people remember Kelly Johnson at all, Kelly Johnson was faster than Jace Young, but I also have Brandon Lau.
Oh, yeah.
Of the Rays, who hit 35 home runs the other year, and he's like a 240, 250 hitter, but he's got pop and he's a plus player, and then also like a turbo Cody Clemens.
Yeah.
Like Cody Clemens,
That's what I
hit.
said. Yep.
Yeah,
Turbocharged Cody Clemens, way more toolsy. Yep.
So here's a question for you guys: Does he start in West Michigan this year?
Absolutely. Well,
Yes.
he would probably spend a week or two in Lakeland getting acclimated, getting his blood drawn or whatever, and then I think he's going to be in West Michigan in short order.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
done that thing with almost everyone where they send them to Lakeland for just evaluation, talk to them.
Just to
Lect-
teach him
lecture
what
the
travel
kid.
is like.
Yeah,
you
teach
know.
him about the ills of the big city and all that kind of thing, how to stay out of trouble. And then West Michigan gotta.
Put him right in Erie. Why not?
I mean,
he's already
probably
used
be
to
all
wearing
right.
the Erie colors, right? He's from Texas
Yeah.
Tech.
Yeah.
Of course, this pick is not official yet, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
we're still waiting on it, but we.
Yeah, I'm waiting and tweet it out. I
but
literally have it.
Cody
in,
Cody said he can confirm it, so that's
Yeah.
he's not going to say something that's
Right.
not true.
Longenhagen plus Cody. Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much a lock.
We're confident,
Cody
but hey,
Cody's the man.
so
stranger things have happened.
I will say this is kind of an ideal setup for me but we wanted a bat here early on, and there's so many college pitching prospects who got hurt this year that they're going to be one or two of them is going to be available for the Tigers there at 51, and they could be getting a first round talent there that is just a little riskier because of injury. So that's an ideal scenario to me.
Yeah, there should
It
be
is
plenty of
because
good players there.
the Tigers have to be right. They have to be
Yeah.
right if they want this draft to be a success. They have to be right at 12 because they don't pick again until 51. And when it gets to 51, which is their second round pick, they have to be right at 51 because then they don't pick until the fourth round.
Yeah.
So that puts a lot of onus on these top guys for them to be correct. Obviously, you can develop the later guys, and all of that mostly is just gravy.
Yeah.
But, if you have your comp pick, you can miss on 12 and still kind of get a guy in that 31 to 38 range. I'm not sure exactly where the pick is, but you have to be right here. This is you have to believe in Young that this is your guy.
And remember, I think you answered this in our Discord chat. And anybody who might not be on there should join it, right?
I should.
the Tigers.
You know what? I should send people a link.
This would be 2 years in a row that the Tigers have taken a player first overall or their first pick with the initials JJ. And I posted a quiz. I said, "When's the last time that 2 years in a row the Tigers' first round pick had the same initials?" And Trevor got it in like 2 minutes or less.
Well,
when
I
he
was
first saw it.
preparing for the draft, so I was looking through the history, so I just happened to pick up on it.
And it was Rick Porcello and Ryan Perry back in 07 and 08.
Yeah.
Shout out Ryan Perry.
Oh, Ryan Perry. I forgot.
Mohawk Perry.
Oh,
baby.
just ignore Rick Porcello. Keep doing it. The Cy Young Award winner.
Rick
I
Porcello
keep
is
waiting for
ignoring
Rick
himself
Porcello
right
to
now.
emerge out of retirement.
What is
here.
Rick Porcello doing? I want to know what Rick Porcello
He's
is up to.
fishing, man.
He's living life, baby.
He's polishing his Cy
fishing
Young.
somewhere.
Yeah, but
Ridiculous.
Polishing his Cy Young Award. for
it is.
2016.
Yeah, I'm curious why.
Is he
this-
on a boat somewhere?
Like
Oh.
some picks are coming in like this, and then they take. It's got to just be
pictures
for the
of it to
broadcast,
Justin
right?
Yeah,
That the
no,
picks are taking so long.
No,
or-
no. It's also I don't know why we're seeing the best of Bud Selig here apparently, but
So not that we're like people could just go on Fangraphs and see this, but Longenhagen says now that he's had one person tell him that he thinks Collier goes to school now. I don't know. Where's he committed?
Wow. That's a
I
great
don't remember.
question.
I guess I didn't look up where he was committed because I assumed he was going.
You think he'd do a second year?
So
at
here's the announcement.
Chipola?
I think it looks like an announcement. Oh, there's Pause. I was going to say, where's Pause? There he is.
Yeah.
Chilling.
Actually, Avila in the pause costume.
Al Avila's making extra money doing this.
Collier's committed to Louisville.
Oh, well, there you go.
There you go.
I mean,
And they're still not announcing the pick. Let's
be
go, folks. Come on.
eligible to be drafted as a younger than Workman Jr.
Right.
And,
yeah,
and
seriously.
probably after 3 years of demoralizing the ACC.
Would it have to be another 3 years? Because he's already a college guy. He's JUCO.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could technically go, but I think if you go, that's a good question. If you go from JUCO to college, do you have to then go 3 years, or would it be two?
I think it matters. I think there's an age bracket that
I'm
changes
pretty
by
sure it's
year,
still
so I don't
two,
think we
yeah.
know.
So here we go. Now they're making the official announcement that we've known now for almost 10 minutes because
Look at that Rob Manfred fart face.
Yeah.
Just like I just
I'm
smelled
squinting.
something.
I can't
The
see. I'm not
Ti-
wearing sunglasses.
The Tigers' Twitter account just tweeted, "The night is young."
There you go.
Oh,
So what does that mean,
there
do you
it
think?
is.
There you
There
go.
it is.
Cue the song.
Tigers did not screw that up.
Chew Jungle Boogie. Jungle Boogie.
Jungle
Okay, good job,
Boogie.
Tigers. Good effort.
We had some music. You know what? I'm okay. I'm stoked for this pick. I'm stoked.
Okay, so let's the two times you evaluate a draft, right? You start with Jace Young. I'm evaluating this draft so far as good.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
They're showing.
There you go.
No, he's good. Okay, here's what's good about him. Okay, the fact that he has a power tool to him. The way his swing mechanics split up. I like the fact he gets the barrel out pretty quickly, and this fits well for what you're mentioning, Trevor. The whole power movement the Tigers are doing right now, and the bloodlines with him are really well. But overall, for size, it kind of reminds me of almost like Daniel Murphy, but a little taller, like just kind of built. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like a thicker.
Yeah.
He's a thicker build. Yeah.
Yeah, thicker. He's got thicker lower half, which is where sometimes his position might be in. But
Yeah, that's the one worrisome comp I made was Willie Calhoun, but Willie Calhoun I don't think had the track record of hitting in he didn't go to college, I don't think so. Maybe he did. I don't remember. But they're highlighting his funky setup right now with his hands, but it doesn't really matter because he does that.
And
So-
that is hitting a home run, by the
Yes.
way. You guys, I don't know if you guys have that on. But what I like about Jace Young and what I like about his swing is that it's really quiet, right? There's not a lot of movement that goes. I know he sets up in a funky way, but there's not a lot of movement that goes on beyond it. So when his hands start, he's got that really weird setup where his hands are kind of cockeyed, cocked back a little bit. But when he loads, his hands come down. And he's a lot more, they're in the position that they need to be for him to launch his swing. And you're going to see a retired college pitcher with a bat in his hand now, so watch out.
so here, Trevor, why don't you break it down for us?
Yeah, so I'm going to stand up for this, too. This is
Yeah.
going to be wonderful. So, okay, almost knocked a chair over. So his hands start a little cockeyed like this. You kind of see where the bat is going. But when he goes to stride, all he has to do is kind of bring it down, tilt the bat head, and he's already in
flips his
position
wrist,
to
yeah.
launch his hands. Right, and that bodes well for him developing into a hit tool because he doesn't have to move his hands around a lot. His hands get into the launch position so quickly that he can get to velocity, and he can keep them there and kind of drift them if he recognizes off speed without losing a lot of power. And those kind of hands are really good. That's what makes Riley Green so good is his hands. And I think that Jace Young has the ability to have a similar skill set of his hands will lead the path of his hitting development.
And Trevor, the thing is too with his, he already has strength already. When you're flicking your hands that quickly through that, it looks like the way he's ripping the bat allows him to have more of a quickly barrel up the ball quicker.
Yeah.
And I said that redundantly, but yeah.
No, but he can find barrel, and the weird setup, of course, like they highlighted it, but his pinky kind of comes down. If you could see it, his pinky kind of comes down over his hand, his bottom hand a little bit, and at the end of the day, I'm going to go back to what I said about Zach Neto. He hits the ball, and he hits the ball with power. Put your hands wherever you want to. You can have them the wrong way. You can start with the bat behind your back. Doesn't really matter if you can get to the ball.
By the way, Brian Sikowski, friend of the show, longtime friend of the show, said this about the pick. One of the premier college bats. Detroit has to be thrilled that he slid here, left-handed bat with plus hit, plus power projection, gets on base a ton.
a
Best
very
fit's
high
probably
chair.
second base. Fringe defensive projection. That's where we're talking about the defense again. Yes, David.
Just a thought. I had kind of a just a spark comp for Jace Young.
Zach Nato went to L.A. The Angels.
Oh,
Zach Nato's not a pitcher. Is he going to be a pitcher now?
That was a decent slider.
That's the shortstop. I like that.
Yeah. Well, who was your comp for Young?
This just kind of came to me a little bit, but he looks like a little bit more of an opened up version of Jason Kipnis.
Oh wow, yeah, I could see that.
Okay.
That's the same kind of size. I think
Jason Kipnis.
Kipnis was a solid player for multiple years. I think he was more of a hit over power. I think Young might have a little bit more pop than him.
I
but
know it's kind of the opposite.
But no, it's a second baseman, similar body. Yeah.
I don't know if you can project Young as a second baseman as much, because when you watch him on the defensive side of the ball, his instincts are pretty good. Mm-hmm. But his lateral mobility is really what is the biggest issue in terms of what will his range be. And when you get a guy up the middle, second base, shortstop, you kind of want him to have some lateral mobility. I think his instincts and reaction are fine, but with the limited lateral mobility, if his arm can handle third, I think that's probably where you get the best defensive play out of him.
Yeah, and you know what? There was one comp that we forgot about as Tiger fans. Everybody remembers this, right? I mean, we're talking good old number 20 back in the day. Anybody? Mickey Telton?
Mickey Telton.
Do John Walkenfuss next.
No. I can't remember John Walken. That's a little bit before my time. Mickey Telton, fantastic.
I will say for people, where did Prospects Live have Young ranked?
Josh Young for Prospects Live is number 11.
Number 11. He's number 9 to Baseball America, number 9 to MLB Pipeline, and number 20 to Fangraphs. So the odds are that the Tigers have drafted at number 12 another top 100 prospect. He'll be on top 100 lists probably in the latter quarter whenever they update those. But that's nice to have. Not that it matters really that much, but this is they've improved their farm system. He's probably going to be the number 2 prospect in their system.
Especially with Riley getting ready to graduate, he could be the top guy in a month.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'll be between him and Jackson Jobe, I think, depending on the site. But yeah,
Wilmer Flores too, apparently.
Yeah, Flores is on the Baseball America site now. Yeah, although he didn't. We got a brief look at him in the Futures game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he hung over a slider that got hit, but.
But Longenhagen has they have little draft capsules and they're free, so we can read it. And he mentions that he's got a Chuck Knobloch or Mickey Tettleton style setup.
Yeah.
Young had a really interesting season too, just because, last year, being not this calendar year but last calendar year, he obviously crushed the baseball, and then this year, especially in the second half, is when we kind of saw him slide, and it wasn't even to a fault of his own. We kind of talked about it off air before, but people just started pitching around him, hit career high in college on base percentage this year, and was walking a ton. I think he walked more than he struck out this year by a lot. He just was, and he wasn't able to show off the power as much. He still had a lot of homers and a fantastic slug, but it's just maybe people pitching around him and almost being afraid of him might have just landed him as a pick, because he started slipping when he started walking more because he couldn't hit a ton of homers.
And walking more isn't a bad thing.
No, hey.
Yeah.
Right? We're not very far removed from a farm system where nobody's walking.
Right.
This system needs walks big time.
He walked more than he struck out every single year in college. Freshman year, sophomore year, and junior year. If there's any slight concern, it was that he wasn't as good in the Cape Cod League or with Team USA. 8 games in the Cape Cod League, so take that for whatever it's worth. He had 219 with 2 walks and 11 strikeouts. That's with wooden bats. And then with Team USA in what was this?
Didn't he lead the Team USA in hitting?
He hit 267. Cross led Team USA with 455.
Right, yeah.
So Young hit 267 in 11 games, 8 hits, 1 double, 1 homer. Let's see, 5 walks and 10 strikeouts. So, these are really small samples. But if there's any sort of hey, down the road we go, we maybe should have looked at that when he was against the best competition. But it's hard to argue with what he's done in college, that's for sure.
It is, and I think that it's nice to get a college bat so quickly after drafting a college bat, because we can kind of guess at or look at what his path to the majors might be. Mm-hmm. And I know that Spencer Torkelson was just sent down, and Spencer Torkelson hasn't been what we all hoped he might be in his rookie year, but they fast-tracked. The Tigers fast-tracked Spencer Torkelson.
Yeah.
And so if Jace Young shows up to West Michigan after his week at vacationing in Lakeland and he's hitting, he could be on that fast track too, where he starts in probably Double-A next year and all this stuff. But it just matters how he performs. But if he's performing, the Tigers have shown us they're not afraid. We could see Jace Young in Detroit in a year or two.
And I think that's why so many people wanted to go college bat. We had the conversation before the draft about being so anti-pitcher, and this draft was so weird because of the shallowness of the pitcher position. Like, odds were pretty good that at 12 the best player available, which is what we all agree you should take, was going to be a bat. And so just kind of the stars aligning, I guess. And I think that's why a lot of people were big fans of going college bat, because this offense obviously needs a boatload of help, and he could very well be on the fast track if he just gets hot for a couple of months. That's literally what happened with Torkelson. So
what's interesting to me is the amount of pitchers already that went in the top 10. Like, this was, it was almost like a foregone conclusion by every mock draft. Correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, that there was going to be no pitchers going there, and so we saw the chaos. The chaos theory. Chaos has played well.
In a word. Chaos.
We need to gift that. We need to find a way to just gift that.
Yeah,
Us
this is going
chaos.
Well,
and here's the Mets selection for pick 14, and they are going with
Dare do Brock Porter.
It's got to be a pitcher.
Porter. Is it Brock Porter? Well,
Do they dare?
Jet Williams.
Very nice.
Okay.
Jet Williams,
Well done.
I like him a lot. He's undersized. Like, what is he, 5'8"?
Yeah.
But he's not skinny. This is not like Nick Madrigal. He's a thick dude, and a lot of people thought he was, next to Termarr Johnson, the best prep hitter in the entire draft. And he's got other tools too. Like, he's a plausible shortstop. If not, he's going to be second base or center field. And Rockwall, I think the high school he went to, I believe that's where the Tigers got. Who is it? Jake Thompson from?
Jake Thompson. Yeah, Jake Thompson. By the way, we got a question in the chat from Christopher. How good is the Cape Cod League at predicting how well a player does wooden bats versus aluminum?
That's a very good question.
if it helps your narrative, that's my answer. Seriously, 100%. Like, if there's a player that you think, like, oh, look, like, I'm trying to push the agenda that he's good, that it matters, and it doesn't if it doesn't.
Traditionally speaking, scouts like to see players perform with wooden bats against better competition on a regular basis. I'm not aware of any studies that looked at how well players who performed in the Cape did versus players who didn't. We've seen cases where Dylan Dingler did not go to the Cape, and he's ended up being a pretty good prospect. But there are certain organizations who put a lot more value on it than others. I think the Cardinals tend to be a team that really likes Cape performance.
Definitely, yeah.
And the Cardinals have a pretty good record of drafting guys that turn out well.
Yeah, speaking of the Cardinals, by the way, they have the best WAR among draftees. We just saw a chart about that recently.
Tommy Edman.
Yeah.
Tommy Edman, yeah.
The Cardinal way, as much as I think the Cardinal way sounds snotty and BS to me,
It works.
it works, exactly. And Trevor, you're in Cardinal country, so you witness this all the time.
Yeah, it's you can call it Cardinal way, you can call it devil magic, whatever you want to call it. The Cardinals always seem to have the next guy up that can be a contributor. They're not necessarily developing huge stars, but they have guys ready who can come up and contribute. They'll draft stars. Jordan Walker, I think, might be a star.
Yep.
But the Cardinals do best player available every single year, especially in the first round. They wait. Whatever comes to them, that's what they pick. They know what they like. I think they are a plausible destination for Chase DeLauder, who is an interesting, if we're going back to the Cape talk, he saw his stock rise. He was the top player in the class heading into the season. Excuse me, because of his Cape performance. And then he didn't perform well. He had his first big weekend against FSU, and he saw two really good lefties, one of them being Parker Messick. And he struck out 8 times in 10 appearances or something, in 10 plate appearances. Yeah. And all of a sudden, we don't know. Chase DeLauder could not be a first rounder anymore. So, in terms of the Cape effect, it can really help you, but you gotta back it up. It can't just be, oh look, I was good on the Cape, so you should take me high. But yeah, the Cardinals, man, they always have somebody, and I think that's a testament to how they draft.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just saying, I mean, there are a couple. We talk about Zach Neto. He's a guy who plays at Campbell. They don't play a ton of good competition, but scouts feel a lot better about him now because he went and hit 300 in the Cape. Nick Gonzalez is a classic case because he played at New Mexico, or was it New Mexico State?
New Mexico State. Yeah.
But
Anybody can hit
he backed
450.
it up.
Yeah.
He
went
backed
to
it
the
up.
Cape.
He was a COVID-shortened season, but he hit like 5 home runs before the season got canceled.
Yeah, but he went to the Cape and hit really well, and people are like, oh, I think he's a first rounder now, and yeah, he went in the top 10. Hasn't worked out great just yet, but that it can move a guy up, I think, pretty significantly.
And for right now, as far as what the San Diego does here in Cleveland next, Cleveland's also a team that the way their draft profiling, the Cleveland has a system down, and we've talked about this numerous times of how they develop pitching, even with their hitting profiles. They were, correct me if I'm wrong, they used to be a lot more into high school bats, right? And now they've kind of changed it up a little bit.
Who is it, Cleveland?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they've definitely in the last 5-6 years they tend to take the youngest prep players possible, and then in later rounds they will go for these college pitchers who have a great track record of throwing strikes and not necessarily plus stuff, and then they just go ahead and give them plus stuff. That's it. Here you go, Shane Bieber. You're just going to be a Cy Young winner.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, not to switch directions here, but knowing the Padres, what they like to do, this feels like Dylan Lesko here, right? Like
This feels like Cam Collier.
I guess if they
Well, if they give him the money he wants.
at this point,
Sure, but why not? Like 2 years ago, Cole Wilcox was going to go to UGA. He was committed.
they
he
got
was
him
going to
third
go back
round,
to
right?
UGA. He was
Yeah,
already
that's
there.
right. Good call.
He was going to go back there, and they said, "Nope, we're taking him in the 3rd round." Everybody's like, "Where are you going to get the money for that?" And they said, "Well, right here." And they, and Cole Wilcox eventually was traded to Tampa Bay, but. Seems like Collier could be a guy for them. They have that reputation of, we don't care if you say you're going to college, we're going to pay you, and you're going to come play for us.
Well, yeah, I'm beginning to wonder now if the Orioles might pull like a great okey doke and get Collier with their 2nd pick somehow because they have a monster bonus pool.
David, what did you want to say?
I mean, the only thing I would say about Collier to the Padres is that do you think that the Padres infield depth might be a little loaded right now? All things considered, do you think they'd have room in there for another infielder?
Yes.
I think teams generally don't worry too much about the farm system when they're drafting, unless the only situation where that might come to play is if you have like a really highly rated catcher who's about to step up and like, do we draft another catcher? But if they've got a ton of infielders, they'll just be like, all right, well, we can use some of these guys to trade, or it's going to work itself out. There's never a situation where you go, I don't know, we got too many prospects. This is a bad situation for us.
Or you could put Collier at at 2nd if that's what the situation calls for. Tatis has already said that he's open to moving to the outfield if there's another shortstop coming that needs to play shortstop. So I think they have those kind of guys that they can move around and fill the puzzle. So
Some jackass on Twitter. Leave it to Elvis. Pick the lesser defensive player. Get out of here. Because he go with Cam Collier. Look. Anyway, sorry.
I mean, the thing is, with
I hate Twitter. I really do. Sometimes I hate Twitter. Some of these hot
The
takes.
Tigers took infield Kristen Stewart.
well, I mean, you can look back and yell at the Tigers that they didn't take Mike Trout or that they didn't take Aaron
Yeah.
Judge or
Nice one to take it.
yeah. So well. You said it, but it's no one knows what's going to happen with these guys. You can't predict who's going to be good or who's going to be bad,
Yeah.
right? You
Also-
take your guy.
Almost the entire league passed on
Yeah.
on Mike
Knock it
Trout,
off.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not just like a Tigers thing. but that
Aaron
was-
Judge was, I think, the last pick of that
Right,
first
yeah,
rounder. He
it's-
was a comp pick. Like everyone passed on
everyone
him.
else did.
There are good players and there are stars. Every draft taken after the first round. Mookie Betts was a 5th rounder.
The Tigers passed on Tarek Skubal 8 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good way to look at it. No, you're right. It's so we're gonna go till 9:00 tonight, and then we'll be. If you have any questions in the chat, what have you? There's somebody in the YouTube chat. Twitter sucks. No way. Yeah. Well, anyway, no, but. We're going to go till 9:00, and we're going to keep talking. So if you have any questions, if you're in the YouTube chat, let us know. Again, you can hold us on Twitter, too, as well. But, again, everybody's been doing a great job tonight, so I appreciate it. Brandon is writing up a fury behind me, right?
He's probably got to write up the draft
Brandon's
report,
writing
right?
up
Yeah.
right now.
I know Matthew is doing the same over at Motor City Bengals.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked over here and said, I don't think Trevor's going to do it, so I might as well just sit down and hammer it out.
Well, Adam in the chat was like, Mike Trout's not how you make that point, but that's
How do you make that point otherwise?
No. I'm saying that's what 97, or excuse me, that's that certain person did when they mentioned Mike Trout. Apparently,
Well, yeah, but either way, how else do you make that point other than he went what 24th overall? So
24, 25.
He was the second.
So
pick
23
for the
teams
Angels.
passed on the future
Let's go.
best
Yes,
player.
the Angels literally.
The
There you go.
Angels
You called
took
it.
Yeah,
Randall
nailed it.
Grichuk first. What's that?
Let's go.
Let's go to the Padres.
It just they love high school pitchers.
Yeah.
They do. They really do.
They were like high school players. I mean,
Yeah,
they got
you're
James
right.
Wood coming up right now, and that dude's a monster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So some of
yes.
the Tigers were like too as well.
I mean, you're talking. I mean, this was a kid who was probably again. It's you never know with high school pitching, but this was a no doubt top 10 pick and top 3 talent overall on this draft before he got Tommy John surgery. So if they're, convinced he's going to be fine, yeah, they got. I mean, it's a great pick for San Diego right here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He might be. I mean, he might be better than Brock Porter.
Yeah.
Well, that's another name that we're seeing. Where does Brock go now? That's obviously like the Tigers are out of the question, but still a hometown kid. That's a very big storyline locally still.
Yeah, I mean, will he go ahead of your guy from the Mets? I'm blanking on his name. The
Prila?
what's
Oh no.
the high school, the last first rounder from Michigan. Why am I blanking on his name? The outfielder from Brother Rice.
Yep.
What's his name? He was on he was in the Cardinals, and then he got signed by the Mets, and he went 24th or 25th overall a couple years ago. What's his name?
I can't. I'm trying.
All
I know
right.
who you're talking about too.
Yeah, I talked to him. He had a nice truck.
His mom's maiden name.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna look it up. But
So you have
guys-
enough information to steal his identity, but you can't give us his name.
because I mean, it's pretty rare for any high schooler from Michigan to go in the first round, and I'm trying to. Was that the 2015
And speaking
draft?
of Michigan, by the way, Chris, there's a Michigan. Who from the University of Michigan could go first day or second day?
Clark Elliott, I think, is the
Clark
main
Elliott.
the outfielder. He's the main guy, but they also, we probably
Nick
won't
Plummer, by the way. Somebody-
Nick Plummer. There we go. Thank you. Whoever
Thank
it
you,
was. Yeah.
Palazzo. Good old friend of the show, Mike.
Yeah, I feel bad because I did actually interview
I
him
wrote
when
a
in high
whole
school.
manifesto about how the Tigers should sign him,
So,
and I
yeah.
couldn't come up with his name.
Nick Plummer went 23rd overall. Does Brock Porter go ahead of 23? Yeah. It's you get draft brain, you get 7,000 guys in your head, and you
Yeah.
forget first rounders because they don't pop up. Like we were doing. David was quizzing us on first rounders the other night, and I'm like,
Clark Elliott, though, I hope the Tigers find a way to get him. I know that
he could be there at 51.
He should be there at 51.
Yeah.
Is the thing, and it's not because he's bad. It's just there's a lot of talent in this draft.
Particularly at college outfielder. There are a ton of college outfielders in this class. You mentioned DeLauder. I don't know if anybody brought up Dylan Beavers, is a guy from Oregon. There's Jacob Melton. You got who's the kid Cermak from like Northern Illinois that I kind of like. That I don't know. There's just a ton of them, and so that might be where the best value is later in the draft. College outfielder.
I mean, just to show you the depth of this draft, the comp that goes on Dylan Beavers, who might not even be a first-round pick, but the comp that goes on him at his top end is Christian Yelich.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big, tall, rangy outfielder with power and some speed. And I've also heard that they need to completely remake his swing, but I'm not a swing doctor.
So I'm going to predict that Chase DeLauder goes to Cleveland here.
Chase DeLauder.
That has the real feel of I just saw it. Somebody report that, and I'm just gonna.
No, because I've been looking right here. Look, see?
Yeah, no.
He said, "Check the tape. Check the tape."
Check the tape. I did not cheat. I did not do anything illegal. Just saying. Here's why. Cleveland, I don't know. I like the fact that this is why I'm going to go with this. One, he's a left-handed hitting stick. Cleveland has a decent right field. And two, among prospects right now, I think Cleveland's doing pretty well. We saw their arsenal of pitchers at Akron.
Yep.
So, I don't know, like a guy like him, Chase DeLauder, with that kind of power, why not?
Makes sense. I think if I had to pick here for Cleveland, if I had to throw a guess out there and the pick is coming in, I would say Barriera or Porter and just add another arm.
I feel like Porter's a guy at this
Well,
point
this
who
is
like
very quick. Barriera makes sense to me too. Yeah.
we can kind of just chalk.
Chase DeLauder! Rogers 2 for 2 over here on guessing picks.
Yeah, 3 for 3.
Oh, 3? You got Lesko, you got DeLauder?
And I got Young.
Young? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Well, the important one for what we're doing here.
Yeah, the important one.
It's like, Young.
But it's just, like I said.
Secret DeLauder.
So Chase DeLauder, there you go.
Yeah.
He's who is it? Bradley Zimmer? He's the next Bradley Zimmer.
He's in the right organization for it.
At least it's not the
Same
next.
like height.
At least it's not the next Matt Laporter.
Well, I mean, he could be. We don't know. But yeah, like he's a fascinating prospect because you're talking 6'5", like 235, but a legitimate plus runner with plus power and a plus arm. Might be able to handle center field in pro ball. That's and he hit like crazy on the Cape, right? He was like
he was by far the best hitter on the Cape, and maybe one of the better hitters of the last 5 years at least. I mean, he was unreal on the Cape.
Yeah, but and you mentioned you had a rough first look against probably two of the best pitchers he was going to see all year. He's at a small school at James Madison so he had his freshman year was cut short for COVID. His sophomore year was short because of COVID too. I think James Madison was one of the last teams to start playing that year.
And
We're
right now
talking about his rear foot, how
Yes.
he slides his rear foot back when he swings, which is not
Ideal.
common.
Miguel Cabrera does it though.
Yeah, it's it doesn't matter. Do you hit? There's certain things that. Yeah. Oh, he just put his foot in the bucket. Did he hit?
Yeah. He looks funny. I don't like the way he looks.
Yeah, but and then this year he broke his foot, right? Or was it? There was an injury that didn't allow him to play much, so he doesn't have a ton of track record, other than tearing it up on the Cape, which is again goes back to what we were talking earlier.
So for pick number 17, Philadelphia's up next. I'm gonna go with Brock Porter here because Dave Dombrowski.
There'll be 3 straight
Look.
years with a high school pitcher.
Yeah, look, phone's over here. I'm not cheating. I'm not doing anything. Brandon, Scott, I'll go. Brandon, I'll start with you. Who do you think Philly goes with here?
I'm kind of wrapped up managing my site, so I'm probably like the worst one to ask right now. But come on, take a picture, Philly. What are you
All
doing?
right. Scott.
Yeah, I mean, pitcher definitely makes sense. There's still a lot of people that were mocked to go much higher that are starting to fall. We have Crawford and Cole Young still on the board. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some fun picks left, but it's hard to look at Philly and not say, hey, you need a pitcher that can throw 99.
I mean, Dombrowski would also be a guy that would just go get me Collier. I don't care.
I think that might be the case. Yeah.
Yeah. Remember, he the famous one was the pitcher from Boston, right? Jay Grom, or whatever you pronounce his name.
Yeah, Jay
Groom?
Yeah.
He was supposed to be one of the top 2 or 3 players in the draft, and was sliding down trying to get somewhere. And Dombrowski's like, no, take him. Like, we didn't even scout him. Take him. So
I know what I'm doing. I'm Dave Dombrowski.
Trevor.
I'm gonna be different here, and I'm gonna give 2 names if that's allowed. Is that part of the game?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I think they're gonna be weird and go Connor Prelip
Okay, that makes sense.
to get a more established or college arm to match the 2 prep arms they just took, and you're getting a college arm that doesn't have much experience, so that comes with all the fun. Or
Drew Gilbert.
Susak,
Oh.
Andrew Susak, the catcher. Daniel Susak, Andrew's his brother. Justin Crawford.
Oh wow,
Justin
nice.
Crawford.
I am very over today.
I mean, we know
That's
these
a good
people's
pick.
names.
That's a good pick for Philly. I was.
Yeah.
I really
Justin
like
Craw-
Crawford,
if you guys
but
remember
everyone
Carl
scared me
Crawford-
with the worries about him ever developing any power. I mean, there's definitely some questions there, but then there's also like, I don't know if everything goes perfectly. Maybe you get Curtis Granderson here.
Yeah, maybe you get Carl Crawford.
Yeah, you might get
His
Carl
dad.
Crawford.
The swing is a carbon copy. I mean, legitimately, if you watch it, you might think you're watching Carl Crawford back in the day.
Yeah.
Nice pick though by
It's a
Philly.
pretty good pick. It can help out for their lack of defense, which is atrocious.
So now I think maybe you get Justin Crawford and Mick Abel, and maybe even the guy that Andrew Payne are all heading to Washington to get Juan Soto.
Oh, there you go.
So you reunites with Bryce Harper.
There you go. Bring a championship back to.
Yeah. David,
Back
what do you
to
think about
Washington.
David, what did you think about this pick?
I like the pick. I liked Carl Crawford ever since the good old Rays days. Even after the Josh Beckett trade, or the Nick Puto trade, excuse me, that's what we're calling it now.
Nick Puto trade.
Yeah, no, I always liked the swing. I always liked, like I said, the defense was a little bit to be desired, but yeah, it's I think I'm not sure about the pick for Philly. It's like they have pretty decent outfield depth right now, but yeah, it's like at this point, what do you guys think of Dylan Lesko? Are you surprised that he's not off the board yet?
He went 15th.
Yeah, to
he
San
went to the
Diego.
Padres.
Wait, who am I? Oh no, I'm thinking of Brock Porter.
Brock
Excuse
Porter.
me.
You know, I'm mildly surprised,
No.
but we saw the same thing last year with Alex Mooney. Kind of like there was talk about him being a first rounder, a sandwich pick, and I don't know if teams just get scared off by Northern kids.
I think Mooney, though, early, like before the draft, said, I'm going to Duke.
No, okay.
Yeah.
I think was
Well,
the thing with him.
maybe Brock Porter said I'm going to Clemson.
But, you know, prep pitchers are the riskiest faction of draft draft people that you can get.
Really? I wonder who went third last year. It's crazy.
No, well, and also you'll often see prep pitchers like
stir it
that.
up.
Just call me out.
They almost.
I didn't say anything.
Just call me
Just
out.
stir it up, man. Just stir
That's
it up.
one of the most common picks in the sandwich rounds is a prep pitcher that somebody takes with their second pick, just to spread out the risk. And more often than not, those guys taken in the comp rounds, the second round, are as good or better than the high school pitchers taken early. Because the high school pitchers taken early are usually the guys who develop velocity earlier, and they don't always work out so great.
And I think we're kind of past the point where teams would take a prep pitcher like Jackson Jobe at 3 to save some money so they can afford somebody else in the comp round. I think we're a little bit past that point to where it's now, if that was your pick, like that's your main pick. You're not getting a supplemental pick like getting Jobe and then Madden.
For sure.
I think so. The Reds have they're picking 18th, but they have like the 7th or 8th largest bonus pool because they also pick with like 32nd, 31st, 32nd. So this could be a Collier spot maybe if they go well over slot. I don't know how much
Do you think it could be signability for Collier at this point?
I think that's it. That's absolutely it. I'm sure he put
At
a number
this
out
point.
there, and either he's got a deal with somebody who's going to give him like I said, $5 million plus, or he's just going to go to school now.
At this point, I think it's signability. I think if
Yeah.
you're still in the top 5, it's just a matter of do you want him or not.
Yeah.
Because
unless-
you got to look at what the slot is. But I don't know. The Reds feel like a destination for Drew Gilbert to me from
Yeah.
Tennessee, the outfielder from Tennessee.
You know what? I could see that. That makes a lot of sense.
They recently took Austin Hendricks. And I think Gilbert has a lot of similar to that a little bit. I think that'd be an interesting pick here.
See what they go ahead, Chris.
Longenhagen says here in Collier we'll get about $5 million from the Reds. So,
There you go.
Nicely done.
well, yeah, well, all right.
So, do you need me to connect you two? What's going
No,
on?
no, no. I was just saying.
It's just I just was looking at the bonus pools and
Yeah.
thinking like which other teams. So the Rockies have. Who did the Rockies take? They took Gabe Hughes.
Yeah, they took Gabe Hughes.
Which is not going to cost them. Maybe they save money there. Apparently, the Rangers. I think Passan wrote that they saved about $2 million on Rocker.
Wow.
So they may be going ham later.
Wow.
They might have said, "Hey, do you want to play with Jack again?"
Right?
Yeah.
It's for real.
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah." So that's interesting on Collier. That's
Yeah.
really interesting because
$5 million.
the Tigers could have done that. So
Absolutely.
I think what would have happened there, more than likely, is that the Tigers didn't think Collier was there. They didn't meet with Collier. They don't know what the number is.
It's also
Yeah, that makes a
yeah.
lot of sense.
given the state of the Reds organization that taking a 17-year-old ain't anything. You know what I mean? Like that's you're not going to be good for a long time. So like you
Right.
might as well take all the prep or JUCO or whatever you can and just ride the wave and see what you get out of them.
Well, and this is exactly almost to a T to the pick is what happened with Khalil Watson last year.
Yeah,
exactly.
A prep shortstop. He fell. He wound up going to the Marlins at I think 15 or 16.
So that sounds about right. And he ended up getting close to $1 million over slot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to stick around for this pick, and then we're going to get out of here. We're going to stick around. We're going to stick around in the studio for a minute, but we're going to.
Darn you, Dunkin' Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts. What? Oh, yeah.
Short attention
We
span.
gotta
But
do the ad
everybody
now.
who's watched us tonight, thank you so much for participating, sending the questions. And as soon as this Reds pick is in, tomorrow. There'll be the second round. The Tigers will pick number 51.
No, they're doing that tonight.
That's
Oh, they're doing
tonight.
it tonight?
Yeah, they're
Oh,
doing
okay.
the first 80 picks tonight. So
Yeah, 80 picks.
If you guys want to stick around,
I guess we're sticking around till.
Well, let me ask. Okay, I'm
but
going to ask
that'd be
everybody
like
in the
11.
YouTube.
So yeah, but
Does anybody in the YouTube chat? Does everybody wants to stick around for another hour or half hour?
I
What about you guys? What do you guys?
I'm
at
not.
right now?
I have nowhere
I'm
to
here.
be. But yeah.
Chris, what about you? All right, you're
Let's
here.
keep it going.
Well, I'll broadcast for a week if you want me to,
Yeah,
Rod.
that's
All
good.
right. You guys want us to continue on? We will, but
That's good. Well, I wanted to throw out if we were going to take off, that just maybe some ideas for who people might want the Tigers to take at 51. I don't know if anybody's thought about that. I can put my
Yeah.
first name out there if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead,
Well, you
Chris.
mentioned
Clark Elliott.
Clark Elliott. You also mentioned Landon Sims, right?
Landon Sims.
Landon Sims.
I don't think Landon Sims makes it though. Landon Sims probably goes in that 30 to 40 range.
Probably, yeah, but you never know. I was from sort of the same phylum of SEC pitchers who got hurt. I would like to see Peyton Pallette. He's kind of an undersized righty. He was getting comps to Walker Buehler before he got hurt last year. Power fastball, power curveball. But again, he might not be there. I'm just saying.
Blade
I wouldn't mind
Tidwell,
it.
Carson Wisenhunt. There's a lot of
Yeah.
guys who could be there.
Reggie Crawford, the most fascinating player in that round, in that area.
Reggie Crawford might turn out to be the best pitcher from this draft.
Yeah.
Like, that is not out of the realm of possibility for Reggie Crawford from UConn.
And he's got 8 career innings, I think. But
People in the chat want us to chill or keep going on for a little while.
Yeah, all right, fine. So Reggie Crawford, he's one of those cold weather bats. He's up at UConn, and he's got the underlying data is fantastic, and there is every reason to believe he could be the best pitcher in this draft, but it's an unknown.
yeah.
Can
Huge.
I throw a controversial one out there?
Sure.
How does everybody feeling about Judd Fabian?
You know what?
Don't hate
I
Judd
kid you
Fabian the
not.
second.
Scott, I kid you not. I was going to ask that question because I have him right up here. Because
I think that's one of the most fascinating picks, not only in the second round, but in all of day one. That's a guy who last year was literally talked about as a potential number 1 overall pick in the early parts of the season, and then struck out at an unbelievable clip for the remainder of the year and had some questions defensively. And slipped, and then went to Boston in the comp round, and then didn't sign, went back to Florida, and now is mocked at like a early 50s, late 40s type of pick. And like when he doesn't strike out, like the hitting's good. You know, he's an athlete, kid's athletic. I think that's one of the most fascinating picks in the entire night.
I mean, go back, look it up, call me out, call me an idiot, whatever you want. My way too early 1-3 pick last year was Judd Fabian to the Tigers.
Yes, me too.
100%.
Somebody's done it before and literally called me an idiot before because of it. But
Well-
I at the beginning on college opening day, I'm pretty sure I said Judd to Detroit was like one of my wishes. Yeah.
And his strikeout rate was down this year. I think the thing with Judd Fabian, when you watch him, and I have absolutely no way to prove this claim, but when you watch him, he's almost like a guess hitter at the plate. If he guesses right, watch out because that thing's going to fly.
it's
He
going
hit a
500
majestic
feet,
home run off of Jack Leiter last year. But it's just he's got to guess right, and that kind of leads to a lot of strikeouts. So I wouldn't hate Judd Fabian. I'm going to throw out one more name before someone else starts talking.
I was also going to throw out Parker Messick.
Parker Messick. Yep, that'd be good to take down to Lauder. We know he can do it. Connor Stain from Central Florida.
Ooh, I like him. Yeah.
Well, I have to read up on him a little bit.
He's got some really interesting stuff. I think he's still got a lot of projection left. He's kind of that Dylan
I'm gonna
Smith
sit down
type,
and say.
Yeah.
where you can still project a little bit onto his body. He's 93, 94. Command is not something that you should talk. I mean, it's not great. It's streaky, but you think that he can get there. And his slider's a lot of fun. So I think Connor Stain would be a really interesting pick if you want to go pitcher at 51.
And yeah, he was a JUCO kid before going to UCF, right? Because I remember looking that up. I'm like, hey, did he ever throw to Josh Crouch? And the answer is no, at least not at UCF. But
Couldn't get through one broadcast without bringing up Crouch, by the way.
that's Crouch Oktoberfest.
Crouch is awesome.
Hey, no, I'm
Don't
all
hate
for
the
it.
Crouch, man.
I'm all for it.
You can't, like I said, you can't get much better of a name for a catcher other than Johnny Squats. But no. So back to Fabian, I would not mind that pick in the second round. That's it, especially if, I mean, the potential reward right there is much higher than you would expect for a team that has only 3 picks in the first 4 rounds. But it's like, to me, it's like almost like a Jake Rogers in center field profile, where it's like he's going to hit for some power and he might take some walks, but it's going to be 30+% strikeout rate, and you hope that he plays plus defense. But again, in the second round, if you get a center fielder that's hitting like 210, 220, but is hitting you 20 bombs and walking, it's not the worst thing if he's playing plus defense.
But do you trust?
I don't.
You already know the question.
Yeah.
There you go. Fair enough.
Do you trust the question that Chris answered already? Do you trust the Tigers' hitting development to be able to take Judd Fabian to a level where he's a big league bat? Because the big league bat is there. I think that's not a question. It's just, we're the same thing in the first round. Like, do you take a risky hitter if you're the Tigers? Maybe not, because they don't have that track record. Have they shown enough to be able to push Judd Fabian into that realm of MLB player?
I personally think they don't right now. I personally don't think. I mean, we've seen the strides this year, but I would like to see it on the next major league level, like one of the products actually working out before I say anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what, traditionally speaking, I would have said no, absolutely not. The Tigers just never developed hitters. It's just the way it was. Like, nobody after the first round or two, every now and then there was an Alex Avila or whatever that would pop up, but I don't know enough about the new. I don't think we have enough data from the new development group for hitters yet to say whether they can or not. We've seen some small improvements, right? Raj touched on it. We've seen Winslow Perez is suddenly hitting the ball in the air at like a 10% higher rate. Parker Meadows' swing seems to be a little bit shorter. Kerry Carpenter seems to have shortened some things up. So there have been some signs, but yeah, I don't know. I would not trust them, generally speaking, to do it, but maybe they trust themselves.
It's bold to bring up the Avila name.
Well, I mean, Alex Avila, I think that's a dichotomy right there. Well, there used to be people who hated Alex Avila because he would hit for low average, but it was like the old, like, they didn't care about that he walked 12% or 14% and hit for power and was a catcher. Like, no, he doesn't hit 250. But I think people like Alex Avila generally, right? It's just his dad that they're not fond of his work.
I think kind of a he's been. Most people have been fans of him in the booth too. I think that's probably helped.
Yeah, he sounded great with Dickerson.
I thought so too. I thought he was really solid.
He's been good when he's on MLB Network too. It's kind of funny watching him because he's got like a little understated sense of humor too, which is good on TV.
By the way, I am a big fan of more Austin Jackson. It was one of when he was. I got a chance to talk to him when I was in the press box, and one of the questions was, so what got you interested in broadcasting? And he goes, I don't know, they just asked me. And like, he just seemed like to give this most natural answer, and he was so good at it. Him and Dickerson already had a good repertoire together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people were big fans. He's big now too. Holy cow, he's jacked.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He had the beard going too. He looked like,
man.
He looked like he was gonna crush some people's heads, man.
So who do you think Oakland takes? They're weird.
Las Vegas A's.
That's super weird.
They're always weird.
I would go Beavers, maybe. Maybe Brock Porter. I've seen Brock Porter. They've been scouting the state of Michigan pretty heavily. They've had a couple pitchers from U of M recently. What's his? You know who I'm talking about.
Oh, the guy that was in Lansing?
There's Blake Beers, I think, is on the team now. And then
Sterling Thompson goes here. I don't know.
That's a good guess. That's
Criswell, Jeff Criswell.
Jeff Criswell, yeah. They're Susac, okay.
There we go.
I mean, they have Sean Murphy and they have Shea Langoliers, but sure.
But is Daniel Susac a catcher
Maybe
long
not.
term?
He might be a first baseman, yeah. I mean,
that's the thing. And yeah, maybe outfielder.
But again, I mean, that could be a situation where we were talking with David earlier, like, maybe they just think it's a good enough value here that they took it. Like, we talked the other night about when Matthew Liberatore fell to the Rays. We don't necessarily think the Rays even liked him that much, but they're like, this is a great value here. We're just going to take him. And then they used him to get Randy Rosarena, right?
All right, so this will be our official. We're going to cut the stream after this right here. All right. But, so 51. Okay, so let's go around the room one more time. Who do you want the Tigers to pick at 51?
I talked myself into Judd Fabian.
Okay.
That's one way to do it. Oh man, that's so tough. It's just, I tried to project who's going to be there because it's so far away.
Yeah, there's so many names.
Like if you're saying Compound B, I can take a guess at who's going to be there, but 51 is so far away. I'll stick with Clark Elliott. I really do think that getting another hitter would be awesome. Not that you draft for need, because I'm that guy that you asked to say don't draft for need. But I think getting another hitter would be awesome. I think getting a hitter that has potential average power, average to fringe to average power with probably fringe to average hit. I think that if you can work with that and make it good, especially out of a college bat, and I like Clark Elliott there.
Okay. Chris, final answer?
Yeah, and I was saying Peyton Pallette, but I mean he may end up going like 35th or whatever, so I might look foolish there. But I'm hoping that he is still there for some reason and they take him.
David, last one before we get out of here.
Honestly, it's like before we started, I was watching a little bit more on Jonathan Cannon, and it's like I'm liking him a lot now. It's like I'm gonna take him in the next for our next pick. It's like I know from what I read, it's like I know that fastball velocity went down a little bit, but I still like the slider. and changeup looks good. So yeah, he's my
SEC
pick.
pitching.
Well, and he's got a very Faedo delivery.
Yeah. And they've
Yeah, he doesn't follow through in his windup very well, even when he's pitching hitters in games. But yeah, it's like if you can make that work and locate pretty well, then I'll take it.
All right, I'm still sticking with my Parker Messick pick.
I kind of like Spencer Jones too, really quickly.
Yeah.
Big, yeah.
I don't think he makes it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a
fair
big,
enough.
strong dude who had a really great second half of college.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Second half
definitely.
year, but yeah, I could say. I mean, if he's there, that'd be fun. He's, what, 6'7" with power?
Yeah, big guy. Well, yeah, like the injury
Darn.
and everything earlier, right? Yeah.
Well, everybody, again, thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate it, and we'll be back next week on Thursday. There will be a couple articles coming out on my end here at woodwardsports.com. Check out all the great content. Woodward Pistons. We have the morning show coming up, though. Adam will be definitely hitting it up in the morning tomorrow, going over the pick. So please subscribe to Woodward Tigers, our YouTube channel, and check out all the great content, podcasts, all that stuff. For myself, Trevor, thank you so much. Brandon, who's working on a story on the back. Scott Bentley, check on Lock on Tigers podcast every single day. The man grinds it out. Chris and myself. Chris, of course, with Motor City Bengals and all that jazz. And we'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks to Chris in the booth.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much. You're the man.